Good evening, people. How are we tonight? Hey, Hybrid, Helen, Cheryl, back again. Back again to continue the Adelson Odyssey, guys. Hybrid, did you manage to follow up on what you were saying the other day regarding Sarah Boone? Caught my interest. You were saying that you heard that she had recorded a video of him throwing George down the stairs, right, in the suitcase. I had a look around, I couldn't find anything. But someone else also mentioned that there's apparently video from a period of time when Sarah was arrested, apparently, um, in relation to some domestic issues, shall we say, going on between Sarah and George. Couldn't find that either. I mean, I've not looked into any great depth yet because I'm so deep into the Adelsons case, but um, if anyone knows anything about that, then please let me know. I've been trawling through Reddit and web sleuths, but I've not found anything as of yet. Hey, Sarah with the blue dress. I hope you're fully recovered, Sarah. So, while I wait on whether anyone knows anything about what I mentioned regarding Sarah, I just wanted to. So, for anyone that was here last time, we listened and watched the interviews with law enforcement of Jeffrey Lacasse, who has been a bomb for the Adelsons in this case, without doubt, throughout from very early on through to the actual trials. As I've said, there's been 3 trials so far. The first trial was of Katie McBanoa along with Sigfrido Garcia. Garcia was convicted during the first trial. At the end of the first trial, Katie had a hung jury. So there was a retrial where Katie McBanoa was eventually convicted, and then there was Charlie Adelson's trial. And Jeffrey testified at each of these, as did Wendy Adelson. So as I was saying last time, I think it would be interesting for each of the trials to watch and contrast both their testimonies. Hybrid says, I saw it in a chat. I did try to find back up to it, but couldn't either. I'll keep my eye open in chats and ask if I see it again. Nice one. Perfect. Sarah's not fully recovered, but she's better. Oh, you have a big storm in California, eh? Good time to be inside. So yeah, we were listening to Jeffrey's interviews, which, like as I said last time, you cannot really quite um, have a good understanding of the problems with Wendy until you really listen to what Jeffrey has to say through his interviews and through his testimony. So for anyone that's not seen his interviews, I would recommend to go and watch that back on the previous live. But I'm going to be going into the his testimony beginning tonight. And for this Adelson Odyssey, there is just no other way to go about it other than pretty deep dives each time, because there is so much testimony, so much information, so many interviews. I also want to show the interview of Tamaro Demko, who was interviewed on the day after the murder She was one of Dan's closest and longest friends, and I've not I've not heard all of that myself yet, so I'm looking forward to listening to that interview. But so I'm not going to be going through everything strictly in sequential order, but in an order I think that brings the right focus into different aspects of this case at the right time. And I think it's a good time to delve into Wendy's actual testimony, and as I say, contrast it with what Jeffrey has to say. I think it'll be quite impactful. But just before I do that, you would have you would know of the implication that Wendy was essentially trying to set up Jeffrey as a patsy for this murder. I don't think there's much doubt about that for a bunch of reasons. And one of the issues was the fact that he even drove a car that was almost identical to the car that the killers drove. And Katie McBanawa was a part of arranging the vehicle that they ended up hiring, which we'll get into later. But just to give you a quick look here, this is the Toyota Prius that the hitmen drove. This is captured on a bus camera, either as they're going to Trescott Drive or leaving Trescott Drive. The car was captured both times, entering Trescott Drive and leaving. You see here it's a silver Toyota Prius, and Jeffrey drove a 2004 Nissan Sentra, which I believe was a similar color. This is not his car, but this is, an example, and you can see the similarity, right? Because Jeffrey was due to be driving to the airport on the same day that Dan was killed, and it would have been after the period that he was killed. And Wendy was extremely interested in knowing what his plans were that day when he was leaving. Luckily for him, he left Tallahassee for Tennessee the day previous. A day early, he ended up just driving down towards Tennessee. And part of the reason, actually, that he changed his plans is because his head was so messed up with Wendy. So he thought, fuck it, I'm just, I need to get out on the road, and he left a day early. Hey, Lisa. Oh, the irony. Right? It's quite ironic. He was so messed up by Wendy that he acted differently as a result of that, which gave him an alibi for the murder that Wendy was trying to set him up for. So let me just bring up the the testimony of Wendy Adelson. So we're going back to 2019 here, guys. So this is the first trial of Katie McBanowa along with Garcia. And I want to play Wendy's testimony, followed by Jeffrey's. And I'm sure some thoughts will come to our minds as we're watching this. Okay, cool, Sarah. Yeah, there's they both testified 3 different times at each trial. So this here is Wendy's lawyer coming up to speak.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. It's John Lauro, L-A-U-R-O, and I'm counsel for Ms. Adelson.
All right. And it's my understanding that the state is requesting the court to compel Ms. Adelson's testimony. Is that correct, Ms. Kaplan?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And based upon that, Ms. Adelson, testimony you provide and anything derived from this testimony cannot be used against you, but you will be required to answer all relevant questions. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right. Anything else you want to make?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Jenny.
Anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right. As Secretary, please.
Your Honor, I just get
Yeah, hybrid. This is fascinating. Just take note of some of the details of what Wendy says, because you're going to notice how some of the information she gives evolves through the trials.
been on the time, so I can tell the report.
I think she said about 45 minutes.
Would we then break after theirs and reserve cross for Tuesday?
No. We're going to finish today with this witness.
I understand. I don't believe that we're going to be able to do the deposition.
That's up to you.
You guys can secure a reporter for us. We'll use our reporter at 6.
Oh, tonight you mean? I'll have to work on that. Don't know.
Wait.
Jurors in the courtroom.
Safety. Everybody be seated, please. Proceed, Ms. Kaplan.
All right, please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Wendy Adelson, Wendy Adelson.
How are you employed, Ms. Adelson?
I'm an attorney.
All right, and do you know?
Microphone up just a little bit, if you would, please, ma'am. All right?
I'm an attorney.
All right, how were you employed back in 2014?
I was employed at FSU Law School.
Okay, and were you a member of the Florida Bar at that time?
I was.
All right, and did you know Dan Markell?
Yes, I did.
How did you know Mr. Markell?
He was my husband.
When did you meet him?
We met in 2004.
Okay, and when did you marry?
We married in 2006.
Did you ever live in Tallahassee?
I did.
So incidentally, they met a year after this.
Live in Tallahassee.
When did you first move to Tallahassee?
We moved to Tallahassee in the fall, August of 2005, and we lived in Tallahassee that academic year, so from 2005 until the summer of 2006, and then we spent a year living in Miami from 2006 to 2007, and then I lived back in Tallahassee from 2007 to 2014.
Why did you move to Tallahassee the first time?
The first time we moved to Tallahassee for Danny's job. He got a job at FSU Law School.
All right, and what about the second time?
And the second time we moved back to Tallahassee because he had tried to get a job at University of Miami Law School and it didn't work out.
All right. So both times it was for his employment?
Yes,
Okay. Did you like living in Tallahassee?
I did.
All right. And did you?
Okay, there's the first lie, obvious lie. She did not like living in Tallahassee. She despised living in Tallahassee. She saw herself being there for maybe a year at maximum.
You live on Trescott Drive?
We did.
Showing the 6 is at 6. Is that the home you lived in, the marital home you lived in here in Tallahassee?
That was our home.
And where are you from, Ms. Adelson?
I'm from Broward County originally.
Okay. And do you have family members in Broward currently?
I have one family member in Broward.
Where do you live currently? Or you can just tell us.
What you can see there is an image taken from the morning of the actual murder. I know it's hard to see this here, but there's crime scene tape here, and that's his van in the garage.
I live in Miami-Dade County.
And what about your parents? Where do they live?
They currently live in Miami-Dade County.
All right. And what about your brother, Charles Adelson?
He lives in Broward County.
All right. And do you have any children?
I do.
And how many children do you have?
I have 2 children.
What are their ages?
They are 10 and 8, turning 9 soon.
Okay. Both boys?
Both boys.
And both the biological children of Dan Markell?
Yes.
How are your family members employed, specifically your parents and your brother?
My mom is not currently working very much. She helps out with my dad's office. My dad is a dentist, and my brother, Charlie, is a periodontist.
At the time of Charlie's trial, he had $8 million in his bank account.
And does your family have a dental practice in South Florida
They do.
that they own and operate?
They do.
Okay. Is your family in South Florida wealthy? I know it's a relative term.
Are you asking me to speculate?
No, I'm asking if they're wealthy.
Are you asking me to speculate? Oh, this woman. Wow. Yeah, what else was in the safe, hybrid? Yeah. Stapled money.
You may, if you don't know, you say you don't know.
It depends how you define wealthy.
Okay. Are they millionaires?
No.
Okay. When did you separate from Mr. Markell?
We separated in the fall of 2012.
And was part of the reason for your disagreement or separation
It's actually July 2012 they separated.
having to do with how to raise the children in terms of your faith?
Yes, we had different ways of practicing our faith.
Okay. Do you know when you filed for divorce?
I believe it was the fall of 2012.
Okay, 9/10/2012 sound right to you?
That sounds right.
And when you separated initially in the fall of 2012, did you move to South Florida with the kids?
No, I did not.
You didn't go to South Florida with the kids?
No, I did not.
Was it your desire during that time to move with the children to South Florida?
I would say right then, no, it wasn't.
Another lie.
Are you familiar with a court order ordering you to come back to Tallahassee from South Florida?
I'm not familiar with that.
When you moved out from the marital home there on Trescott Drive, you lived at another residence in Tallahassee, is that correct?
I did.
And do you recall the address there?
I do. 3303 Aqua Ridge Way.
Okay. And Was there a time during the time that you were living there at Aqua Ridge that you determined that you would like to move to South Florida with the children?
There was.
All right. And were your parents very involved in trying to facilitate that relocation?
My parents were supportive of me moving to South Florida.
Would you describe your parents as being over involved in your personal business?
As compared to other people's parents,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can always tell when someone that you have good reason to believe is a compulsive liar um, cannot answer straight questions and will talk around they will try to talk around it as much as possible. And you're gonna see her doing this a lot here. It's just obvious the amount of pressure that was on her to move down to South Florida from both Donna and Charlie was extreme.
What was the child custody schedule when you were living at Aqua Ridge? And I assume Mr. Markel continued to live in the marital home on Trescott?
He did.
Okay, what was the custody situation with the kids?
So the custody situation changed over time and depending on the part of the year. But I think in the beginning, we would do a Wednesday night overnight. It was about 50-50 shared custody, but I don't remember the exact arrangement. I do remember in the summertime it would switch to week on, week off, but during the school year it was slightly different.
So still 50-50, but not necessarily every other week. It was mixed up within the week.
It was.
Okay. And you mentioned that you did develop a desire to move to South Florida. Did you file a motion to that effect on January 14th, 2013?
That sounds, I did file a motion. I don't remember the exact date,
Okay.
but that sounds about right.
All right. And in that motion, did you make some allegations that Mr. Markel was making things difficult for you at work?
I did.
Okay. And was that motion granted or denied?
That motion was denied.
All right. Denied with prejudice?
I don't remember.
Okay.
If you have it, I'm happy to take a look.
Okay. But
It's all just about trying to minimize how severe the legal proceedings were between them and how bitter it was. She knows fine well it was denied with prejudice.
in any event, you were not able to move at that time.
I did not move.
And were you upset about being stuck in Tallahassee?
I was relieved.
You were relieved. You wanted to stay in Tallahassee.
I was happy at my job.
This is one of the most blatant lies here. I was relieved. I think she even dropped this pretense by the time of the next trial. Certainly by Charlie's, I'm sure.
Okay. Do you recall when your divorce to Mr. Markel became final?
The summer of 2013.
Okay. July 31st sound about right?
That sounds right.
Would you consider your divorce with Mr. Markel to be a nasty divorce?
I think most divorces aren't very pleasant.
Okay, but this one was like,
She can't answer the specific question. She has to answer a different question. Well, compared to other divorces, I don't think any divorce is pleasant, right? Yeah, not all divorces are the same.
really unpleasant, right?
I found getting divorced to be unpleasant, yes.
And in the litigation that ensued between the two of you, you guys argued over things as small as a tennis racket, I noticed in one pleading.
I don't remember that.
Did he threaten to press kidnapping charges against you?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't
Remember
remember
that?
that. No.
Did he threaten to go after your law license? Remember that?
I don't remember that, no.
Do you remember him saying you failed to disclose a bunch of assets in the divorce process?
I do remember that.
Okay, did you guys have any mediations as part of your divorce?
We did have mediations leading up to settlement.
2 8-hour mediations, correct?
I don't remember how long they were, but they seemed very long.
Yeah, and they both did not result in a resolution.
They did not.
All right, but you did reach a settlement, I think, kind of just on the eve of a trial on the matter, correct?
That sounds right.
Do you remember this motion that was filed by your deceased ex-husband on March 26, 2014, involving, among other things, that had to do with your mother, an allegation that your mother was disparaging the children?
Objection.
I'm sorry.
Hearsay.
Overruled.
Disparaging him to the children is what I meant to say. Are you familiar with that pleading?
I am familiar with that pleading.
All right, and in that pleading, did he allege that you were depriving him of physical access to the children?
I don't remember the specifics.
Do you recall whether he was complaining about you refusing to communicate with him about right of first refusal to the children during your time with them?
I know he was frustrated about the Skyping.
Lack of communication via Skype?
It's
between
hard
he
to
and the
Skype
children?
with 2 toddlers, yes.
All right, and in that motion, do you recall him being upset about an allegation that you let the kids eat non-kosher foods?
I remember him being upset about that in general, but I don't remember whether it was an emotion or not.
What does that mean, non-kosher foods?
So kosher rules have to do with the separation of milk and meat, or dairy and meat.
Right, Pussycat, yeah. That's why she moved that weekend he was murdered. I think it was 3 days later. So I don't know if it was Sunday or Monday, but she relocated to South Florida within 3 days. But she was relieved to have the motion to move down there denied, right? Not enough to stay in Tallahassee to be available to law enforcement as they investigated who was the murderer of her kid's father. No, 3 days it took her.
So non-kosher foods would be meat that hasn't been killed in a way that conforms with Jewish law, or the mixing of the two.
And is observing those types of eating habits something that's important to you?
It is not important to me.
And was it something that was important to Dan Markell?
It was important to Danny.
And it was important to him that the children observed that way of eating, correct?
It was.
And in that motion, did he seek to restrict your mother's contact with the kids to supervised visits only?
I don't remember, but if you'd like to show me the motion, I can take a look.
Okay, but you don't remember that portion?
No.
All right. Do you remember the allegation that your mother made statements to the children that grandma hates you,
Hearsay. Hearsay.
Overruled.
grandma says you're stupid, your father is trying to take my sunshines away, anything like that? Do you recall?
No, but again, I'm happy to look at it if you'd like to show me.
I understand. Do you recall that Mr. Markell was seeking sanctions against you personally in that motion?
I don't remember that.
Do you know whether this would have been a motion that you would have shown to your mother? Would she have been aware of it?
I probably would have shown my mom the motion.
Is it fair to say that your parents are very protective of you?
I think that's fair to say.
Is it fair to say that your brother is very...
Yeah, Sarah, she was well aware of what Dan was about to hit her with legally, according to more than one friend of Dan's that was interviewed and testified. She knew fine well.
very protective of you?
I think that's fair to say.
Okay. What about Dan Markell? Did your family like him?
Do you want to specify a point in time?
Well, I'm specifically thinking of a statement you made in the interview after his death, where you indicated that your parents were very angry with him. Is that accurate?
At that point in time, during our divorce, I do think they were angry with him. They felt like he had treated me badly.
And the motion to preclude your mom from having unsupervised contact with your kids, that was still pending at the time of his murder, correct?
That's possible. I mean, I don't think anyone took that motion very seriously.
Okay. Did your mom take it seriously?
I don't
Hey,
think so.
Suzanne.
Did Dan Markell take it seriously?
I don't know how Danny felt about a motion. If he wrote the motion, he was probably taking it seriously.
I want to approach with some emails. Have you had an opportunity to review State's Exhibit 80?
She does. She is a skilled liar. I mean, it's easier for us in retrospect to look back and observe this and see the obvious lies and manipulation and bullshit generally coming from her. But if you take all that out of context, she's a killer liar.
Your Honor, could I see what the state's approaching? Your Honor, and I don't know if you want to do it now, or I'm gonna request a sidebar on this.
What's that?
I'm gonna request a sidebar on this, Judge.
We'll let her identify first.
This is State's Exhibit 80. Just take a moment and flip through, make sure this is the exhibit you've reviewed previously.
I've been shown these exhibits.
Okay. And are these exhibits fair and accurate copies of emails between yourself and your mother, Donna Adelson?
They are.
Okay. And the email addresses on this exhibit, donnaharvey@gmail.com, whose address is that?
My parents have a joint email address.
Okay, but you were communicating with one of them in particular in these emails, right?
Whoever signed the email, but it could be from either or both of them.
Okay, either could have used
We
it.
all know it, Sarah.
Deduce from who signed it, who this one was from?
That sounds right.
Okay, and Wendy Adelson @gmail.com, is that you?
That is me.
All right, Judge, at this time, I asked to move into evidence, State's Exhibit.
We'll go sidebar. Let me give a brief legal explanation to the jury. You've heard a number of hearsay objections about things that were said by Mr. Markle, things that are in these emails by another person who may not be testifying. Normally, we refer to those things as hearsay, and they're not allowed without the person actually testifying, but there are a whole bunch of
The poor judge with his voice. Oh my God.
exceptions to that. And one of the exceptions to that is when it's not being offered to prove that what's said is true, but simply to show that it has been said because there's some relevance to the fact that these statements were made. So I am not offering these statements to show they're true. These persons, I mean, obviously Mr. Markle can't be here for us to have cross-examination of him. We don't anticipate that the other Miss Adelson will be here as a witness. We can't test. The attorneys will not be able to test that to see whether that's true or not, but I am allowing it for limited purposes to show state of mind of these persons. So you may proceed, Ms. Kappelman.
Yes, Your Honor. I noticed in the emails that your mother referring to, who I think is Dan Markell, as Jibbers. What does that mean?
Jibbers was a nickname that I gave Danny when he was being really difficult and causing me a lot of pain. Was sort of a nickname I gave him to make him feel less threatening.
So it was a derogatory thing.
I wouldn't say it was derogatory.
Did you call him that to his face?
No, I
She can't even admit that the nickname Jibbers was derogatory. How do you expect anyone to believe anything you say if you won't admit something that obvious and simple?
called him Danny to his face.
Okay.
And to be fair, she probably had good reason. To call him a derogatory name.
And gibbers would be what? How would you spell that?
I don't know that I ever spelled it out. In the emails, I think it's spelled with a J, but I guess you could spell it with a G.
Jibbers.
It's all the small indications of just general disingenuousness that all add up like this. The fact that it's even a problem for her to even spell the name, as if she doesn't know how to spell gibbers. Come on.
That would be one way to.
She can't give an
Ms.
honest,
Adelson,
clear
you
answer
had
to anything.
Mr. Markel's phone number programmed into your phone as Jibbers, didn't you?
That's right.
Whoops. Yeah, it was on your phone contact list spelled a certain way, Wendy. Wow.
Do you know much about your brother Charles Adelson's business practices?
I know that he does implant surgery.
Do you know anything about whether he offers discounts for cash or does a lot of business in cash?
I have no idea.
Do you know if there's a safe in your parents' house that has stacks of cash inside?
I don't know about a safe with stacks of cash.
So you don't have a stack of
Well, you
cash in your
do.
parents' safe,
You
but it's
certainly
Wendy's
do.
stack.
No.
Okay. Did Charlie Adelson like Dan Markel? And again, I'm referring to the time frame before his death.
I mean, I think he was also, he would listen to me when I would tell him about things I was upset about at the time with the divorce. So whether he liked him or didn't like him, he certainly was supportive of me.
Okay, but he never expressed any dislike.
No.
Did he mention
Obvious
hiring
lie.
a hitman to kill your husband?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
No.
There's another lie. Yeah, she obviously he did, right? And there's she she confirmed this with Jeffrey, who is obviously telling the truth.
Did he ever joke about he looked into hiring a hitman, but buying you a TV as a divorce present would be cheaper?
He did make that joke. He tended to repeat himself, and sometimes he would make jokes that weren't very funny about all kinds of things.
All right, and was that TV, did he buy you a TV as a divorce present?
He did.
And was that TV the same TV that was being repaired at your residence at the time that your husband was murdered?
It was.
Who made the arrangements for that TV repair?
I did.
Your mom didn't make those arrangements?
I don't believe so.
It was the mother. It was Donna that arranged this. There's either email or text communication from Donna letting Wendy know that morning when the TV repairmen were coming.
And the repairman was at your house that morning that your husband died between 8:30 and 9:15. Do you agree with that?
I remember he was supposed to come between 8 and noon, and then he ended up coming on the early side.
That's when he arrived, between 8:30 and 9:15?
It's my best recollection.
Okay, so as you'll see or may recall from the map that I was using, I have here between 8 and 10. That's the time frame that Wendy gives during the actual interview with the cops that day. But they were there between 8:30 and 9:15. She called Charlie shortly after that, a few minutes after they left, obviously. And she'd already ignored a call from Dan just after 9 o'clock that morning.
Did Charlie...
And she tried to call Dan back 3 hours later after his call when he was dying. But of course, she never mentioned any of this during the interview. with law enforcement straight after she's told that he's been shot. She does mention the fact that she was communicating with the school library, but not that Dan had called her. Not the fact that she had listened to Dan's voicemail and tried to call him back 3 hours later.
Did he ever say that he considered all possible options to take care of the problem being Dan Markel?
Objection, hearsay, and,
Oh.
Your Honor, may I just have a
Yeah.
standing objection so I don't keep.
Yeah, Wendy texted Charlie to say this is so sweet, and then she deleted that. And she deleted the reminder for the TV repair.
Did he ever say that?
No.
After the murder of Mr. Markel, did Charlie Adelson take you out for a celebration dinner?
No.
Do you recall any dinner where, shortly after Mr. Markel's death, where you were with Mr. Charlie Adelson and vomited?
I do remember that dinner. I'm sorry?
Go ahead, I interrupted you.
After Danny died, I was terrified that someone was going to come after me or my children and harm us as well. And so I didn't leave my house for about a month. And when I finally felt ready to leave the house and have dinner, I told my brother that I wanted to have dinner, that I was ready to finally go to a restaurant and eat a meal again. And I'd barely eaten for a full month, just out of grief and shock. And so that night, when I finally ate for the first time, they ended up taking a while before they sat us, and they sat us at the bar, and I had a drink. And I wasn't used to eating anything or drinking alcohol, and I threw up at the table, the only time in my life I've done something like that, but it was certainly not a celebration.
And you never heard your brother refer to it in that way?
No.
Were you involved in any way in a plot to kill Dan Markel?
No.
Do you have any knowledge, other than the statements you said your brother made or the jokes your brother made, do you have any knowledge of anyone being involved in a plot to kill your husband?
No.
Do you know Catherine Magbanwa?
I have met her before.
How do you know her?
We met one time at dinner when I came home, and my brother introduced me to her. And I think we might have gone to the beach once with her and a friend for a few hours.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 36. Is that a photograph of you and Catherine Magbanwa at the beach?
With her friend, yes.
Okay, and do you remember the friend's name?
I don't.
All right, is
Yeah, she's obviously shown her the picture I just showed you guys. That's Katie on the left.
this a fair and accurate photograph from that event?
That looks like the three of us at the beach, yes.
Do you recall when this was taken?
I don't.
Okay, does Father's Day weekend 2014 sound correct?
So June 2014, that's
Yes, ma'am.
possible?
One month before the murder, and bear in mind the hitmen had travelled up to Tallahassee to scout out Dan in June, the same month of that picture of Wendy and Katie together at the beach. Hey Carolina. Carolina says Jeff said that she drank her dinners. She was either a closet drinker or her family is lying again. Yeah, according to Jeff, she was practically an alcoholic in private.
All right, would it refresh your memory to look at the data associated with that photograph?
Sure.
Okay. Take a look at this top block there that references this photo. Tell me if you can advise when the photo was taken.
It looks like it was taken on June 15th, 2014.
And just to go back to her statement about how terrified she was in the aftermath of Dan's murder, and that explains her throwing up at the dinner. The first time she was able to go out and eat, you know, because she was so traumatized after his death. Yeah, she was able to try and make inquiries into Dan's insurance to see if she was entitled to a payout within days. She had no security, no private security, never asked for any protection from law enforcement, but she was terrified.
All right, and do you know where the photo was taken?
I think that's South Beach.
Close to where your parents were living in the condo?
Yes.
And did you say how you know Ms. Magbanwa?
She was dating my brother.
Judge, at this time, I ask to introduce Stakes 36.
Is there objection?
None for Mr. Garcia, Judge.
None for Ms. McDonald, Your Honor.
It'll be admitted.
All right, so which one is you?
I'm the one in the middle,
And which one's Ms. Magbanwa?
the one on the left-hand side to the right of me in the photo.
All right, and this one is her friend,
Yes.
Ms. Magbanwa's friend.
Yes.
Approach and show you one more photo. Let's see photo 37. Recognize this photo?
I don't recognize that photo, but I recognize the people in it.
Okay, who's in it?
That's my brother, and I think that's Katie.
All right, is Katie Catherine Magbanwa?
Yes.
Is this a fair and accurate photo of the two of them when, I guess during the time that they were dating?
That looks right.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to move to Stakes 37.
Is there objection?
Yes, Your Honor, this witness is not able to properly authenticate that picture in terms of when it was taken and where it was taken, so I would object.
Sustained.
Your brother dated Catherine Magbanwa?
Yes.
Okay. And was that the context in which you became acquainted with her? Was through your brother?
Yes.
Do you know when they began seeing each other, your brother and Ms. Magbanwa?
I have no idea.
Do you know when they stopped seeing each other?
I have no idea.
Do you know whether the relationship between your brother and Ms. Magbanwa was a serious relationship?
I met many, many girlfriends of my brother's over the years. I didn't get any indication that it was a serious relationship.
Okay, he's a guy that has a lot of girlfriends.
Wow, that may be a little bit of truth coming from Wendy there. Yeah, apparently Charlie had like 2 or 3 girls on the go all the time.
He has had a lot of girlfriends.
How many girlfriends has he had since Catherine Magbanwa?
I have no idea.
Several?
Probably.
And does he have a child with someone now?
He does have a child.
How old is your brother?
43?
Has he ever been married?
No.
Do you know whether your brother makes a practice of giving gifts to his former girlfriends?
I have no idea.
Are you aware of any specific gift he's ever given to a former girlfriend?
No.
Do you know Sigfredo Garcia?
No.
Have you ever met him?
No.
I want to ask you about the week prior to Mr. Markel's murder, like June 30th through July 10th, 2014. Were you in South Florida that week?
I know I was in South Florida for my father's 70th birthday. My dad's birthday is July 5th. I don't remember if his party was on his actual birthday or a little before or a little after, but I remember I went down for his birthday.
Can you tell the jury whether or not you were in South Florida on July 1st, 2014?
I couldn't say for sure.
Okay, but it was
Yeah, I just noticed the pattern where she will over-explain and give as much detail as possible when she's actually being accurate. and will minimize and deflect when the truth is not good for her in her answers.
I may have traveled that day. I don't remember exactly when I went down. I only remember I was there for probably about a week, and then I went down for my dad's birthday. But I couldn't tell you more exactly than that.
Your dad's birthday's on the 5th
It is.
What month?
Of July?
Was Mr. Markell planning to leave town the day after he was murdered?
I believe he was.
Do you know where he was going?
I believe he was going to New York to visit his girlfriend.
I believe he was. Yeah, she was texting him, asking him exactly what his plans were days prior to the murder. She texted from in or around Donna's home in South Florida when she was asking Dan this.
And
To visit his girlfriend.
how old was Mr. Markell when he was killed?
He was born in 1972, and he died in.
So this is Sigfrido Garcia on the right, and the his friend, who I think was apparently a member of the Latin Kings gang, who drove him. That's Luis Rivero on the left.
July of 2014, before his birthday's in October. He was 41.
41 years
Garcia on the right was the on and off boyfriend of Katie McBanower, and they had kids together.
old.
Yes.
Did law enforcement in this case analyze your cell phone?
I gave them my cell phone.
Okay. And in your cell phone, you have some contacts for Donna Adelson, Harvey Adelson, and Charlie Adelson, as well as Jibbers, who we've established as Dan Markell. Are all the phone numbers?
Carolina asks, was she supposed to get her kids after school? Cause that party was for 6:30. Yeah, so the liquor that she purchased round the corner from Dan's that morning was for a party at 6:30 that evening. It wasn't for the actual lunch that she was having when she went to Mosaic Restaurant, I believe. And you're asking, she never said anything about cancelling a babysitter in her police interview when she brought every little thing up. Yeah, that's a really good question, Carolina. I don't know what the plans were, whether Dan was supposed to have the kids all that day or not. They obviously had 50-50 custody. It's interesting that after Dan dropped off the kids, 20 minutes later, he called Wendy. Wendy didn't answer, but did listen to the voicemail, so I wonder if he was speaking about the plans there within that voicemail. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Numbers in your phone for them, accurate phone numbers for those folks?
I would imagine so.
And I want to ask you about some recorded phone calls that were taken in association with this case. Did you have an opportunity to review a disc of some of those phone calls?
I did. The phone calls weren't played.
I'm sorry, hold on just a minute.
Yeah.
All right, so I provided you with a disc, correct?
Yes.
And a list of the specific phone calls and the voices on the specific phone calls that I was asking you whether you could identify.
Yes.
All right. And did you initial next to the letters of those calls that you were able to identify?
I did.
All right, I'm going to approach and show you State's Exhibit 175. 175.
I just wanted to clarify that we didn't listen to the phone calls from beginning to end for each one, but that we were able to listen to parts of the phone calls so that we could authenticate who was speaking on the phone call.
Okay, and when you say we, who are you referring to?
Myself and my attorney.
Okay, so you listened to another phone call in order to be able to tell me whose voice was on the call?
That's right.
Okay, and when you initial next to the highlight.
Dan was a good bit older than Wendy. I'm not sure his exact age. I don't have that to hand right now, but he was definitely a good few years older than Wendy.
Portions. Okay, I guess I should say the calls are listed by letter and number, each call, and then I have highlighted the names that I am asking you to authenticate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and if you've initialed next to that call, does that signify that you were able to authenticate that the highlighted names on that call were the voices of those people?
Correct.
Okay, so namely Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson, correct?
Correct.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to move into evidence states 175.
No objection from Mr. Garcia.
There's an objection from Ms. McElhenney, Judge. I
Your
can't,
legal objection?
Your Honor, I think it would require a speaking objection, so I'm not sure how.
Okay, so Dan was 41 at the time of his death. He was born in 1972. At the time of Dan's murder, Wendy was 35, so 6 years between them.
you would like to handle
State
it.
your legal objection.
The legal objection is going to be relevance at this point and improper foundation.
All right, I'll overrule that objection. I'll admit, State's Exhibit 175.
I want to talk about your location on the day of Mr. Markel's murder. You know that law enforcement looked at your phone and sort of looked at your movements that day.
Yeah, pay close attention to exactly how she explains this part.
Yes.
Okay. And that information indicates you were home at the Aqua Ridge residence at approximately 12:27 in the afternoon that day. Is that correct?
I don't remember exactly what time, but that sounds right. I know I had left to meet some friends for lunch, so I guess it.
Pretty strange how she was so jovial in that answer there. Let me just go back. Look, it was the funniest thing in the world to remember.
It indicates you were home at the Aqua Ridge residence at approximately 12:27 in the afternoon that day. Is that correct?
I don't remember exactly what time, but that sounds right. I know I had left to meet some friends.
And you can see she catches herself and gets very serious. Like, watch her face after she makes that jovial reaction there.
Yes.
Okay. And that information indicates you were home at the Aqua Ridge residence at approximately 12:27 in the afternoon that day. Is that correct?
I don't remember exactly what time, but that sounds right. I know.
Wow, did you see how quickly her face changed there? Sorry, I've got to show that again. That is interesting. She catches herself and she's like, oh shit, I should not be smiling and laughing right now.
Yes.
Okay. And that information indicates you were home at the Aqua Ridge residence at approximately 12:27 in the afternoon that day. Is that correct?
I don't remember exactly what time, but that sounds right. I know I had left to meet some friends for lunch.
Wow.
So I guess it was, I had left, I was home until that time. That sounds right.
All
That's
right. So
leakage.
it seems like kind of around lunchtime, about half afternoon.
Sure.
All right. And then shortly after that, at 12:29, it appears you were traveling on Centerville Road. Is that a normal way that you would ingress and egress from your Aqua Ridge residence?
That sounds right.
All right, and when you left your residence, you said you were going to lunch. Did you go directly to lunch?
No, I stopped and made a purchase for a party that I was supposed to attend first.
And what was that purchase?
It was my first time purchasing bourbon. It was for not a bridal shower. It was for a bachelor, no, it was for a wedding party, but it was the bride and groom team.
Again, over-explaining something that is actually accurate, that she purchased this bottle of bullet rye. Because this is something truthful that she can hinge upon, so let's give as much detail as we can about this one fact. But notice how more obscure she is in regards to her drive up Trescott Drive.
Together, and they had asked for people to buy certain alcohol to help them.
Like a stock the bar party.
A stock the bar party. I forgot what
Yeah.
it's called.
Okay. And do you remember what type of bourbon you purchased?
I don't.
Does Bullet bourbon sound familiar?
Maybe. It was,
All right.
they had a list of what they wanted, and so I asked the person at the store if they had whatever kind it was.
Okay. And do you recall where you went to purchase the alcohol?
I think I went on Thomasville Road at ABC Liquor.
Okay. Is there a reason you went to that particular store?
No, I don't know many liquor stores. That was the first one that popped up.
All right. And you made that purchase according to the receipt that was in your vehicle at 12:49. Does that sound about right to you?
That sounds right.
Okay. And did you make any stops between leaving your residence and going to the liquor store?
Maybe I purchased gas?
I don't know if you did or not, but I'm referring to your visit to the crime scene.
I did not visit the crime scene.
Wow. So this has been the first real moment of a direct challenge to Wendy, and she gets extremely frustrated with Georgia from this moment on, from what I recall. That was a jab.
You?
That sounds right.
Okay. And did you make any stops between leaving your residence and going to the liquor store?
Maybe I purchased gas?
I don't know if you did or not, but I'm referring to your visit to the crime scene.
I did not visit the crime scene.
Okay. You did not pull up to the crime scene tape on Trescott Drive?
No.
Remember this moment, guys, because she changes her story here later on in the further trials. That is a bona fide lie. She drove straight up to the crime scene tape. She was seen by the cop. The cop testified about this. He recognized her car. He recognized her and recalled that she immediately did a U-turn and drove away. And the crime scene tape was 3 homes up from Dan's. Trescott, as you can see here, Trescott Drive is in yellow. You can see how it curves round. You would have to turn round that corner to even see the crime scene, the tape. And then further on at least in Charlie's trial, she changes her story here. She admits that she went up to the crime scene tape.
I was driving on Centerville Road, and sometimes I would take the shortcut through Trescott.
Yes, ma'am.
But when I was driving on Centerville Road, I saw some sort of tape or obstruction, and so I didn't turn.
Okay.
You could not see the crime scene tape from turning onto Trescott. She says from turning onto Trescott from Centerville, she saw the crime scene tape. It's just impossible, right?
And then you went from the liquor store straight to the restaurant?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. And what restaurant was that?
What was the name of that restaurant?
Mosaic?
Mosaic.
Yeah, Sarah. During this trial, as you heard, she said that she's seen the crime scene tape from just turning on to Trescott from Centerville, which cannot be true. Yeah, she mentioned down trees. Carolina says, do you know a tree actually did fall on that house, on a house, right after she claimed it was hers? Did a lot of damage and no crime scene tape, though. Wow.
Have you seen the photographs that were taken of your vehicle?
I have not. That looks like my car. That looks like bourbon, yeah.
Who had your kids the morning that Mr. Markel was killed?
The kids were at preschool.
But I mean, at what home did they wake up that day?
That morning, I think they were at Danny's house.
Oh my God. I mean, she can't even give a straight answer to that. Do you think there's any doubt, there's any lack of a memory who the kids were the morning that her ex-husband was murdered? There's a reason why she can't give exact answers, guys. And it's all part of her manipulation and attempt to minimize stuff. I think the kids were there with Dan.
Who had your kids the morning that Mr. Markel was killed?
The kids were at preschool.
But I mean, at what home did they wake up that day?
Yeah, she can't just say Dan had the kids, just to say the kids were at preschool.
That morning, I think they were at Danny's house.
That morning, I think they were at Dan's house.
Did you stand to gain anything from your husband's death, like financially?
No.
Do you know how much the lawyers that assisted you with the divorce process and litigation that followed the divorce, do you know how much they cost?
How much my lawyers
How
or
much you
Danny's
spent on
lawyers?
lawyers, yeah.
I honestly don't remember.
Fair to say it was a lot of money?
It felt like a lot of money to me.
I've heard that people have checked this out, and it has to have cost in excess of 100,000 in legal fees. Whatever it is, it's a huge sum of money.
How many different lawyers did you have during the pendency of your divorce and the litigation that followed?
I had 3.
Do you know how many Mr. Markel had?
I don't remember.
Do you remember your mom suggesting a plan to offer Danny $1 million to allow the relocation of you and the children to South Florida?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I'm sure I knew about it at the time that it happened, and then I had my memory refreshed about it recently.
Okay, guys, do you think if in the course of your life, your mother, a parent, had offered the plan of bribing your ex-husband to the tune of $1 million, that you would need reminding of that, or you would perhaps forget the details? Of course not, right?
Did you ever make the offer to Mr. Markel?
No.
That would stick in your mind, wouldn't it?
Did you move to South Florida after their father was killed with the children?
So after he was killed, I packed a weekend bag and went to South Florida for what I thought would be a couple of days, maybe a week. My son's birthday was July 29th, and I thought we'd be back in Tallahassee by then.
Did you
And-
ever come back?
I did come back a few times, but not permanently.
Okay, so you ended up moving there permanently.
I wouldn't say it's permanent, but I'm living there right now.
Okay. Well, it's been 5 years.
It has been a while. I've been exploring options for employment in many different places.
Okay. And when you initially left to go to South Florida, was that the same day as the funeral service for your husband?
No,
Was it the day after?
it might have been the day after or the day after that. I don't remember.
Oh dear. Not a good look, is it?
Did you change your children's last name from Markel to Adelson?
I did.
When was that done?
So hard for her to remember that it was so quickly after Dan's murder. And just listen to the impressive excuse that she tries to give for the reason for wiping out Markel's name from the kids.
So after Danny died, there was a lot of press coverage, and CNN put pictures of my children's faces unblurred on national television. Newspapers put their names without any consideration to the fact that they're children. And
I
I thought,
appreciate that, but the question is when did you change their names?
when they started school, I registered them under my name, hoping it would keep them safe.
And was
then
that approximately a year after their dad was killed?
it was whenever I registered Ben for school, so it was soon after. But I didn't legally change their name until after that.
Okay. And where did they start school? When you say you changed their name when they started school, was that here in Tallahassee or somewhere else?
No, it was in South Florida.
So that fall, they started regular enrollment like you would in the normal beginning of the school.
Of course, Carolina. Yeah, good point. They were at Dan's. She was picking them up after school because he was going to New York, right? He was going to New York the next day, unless he had arranged possibly for Wendy to pick them up the next day before he went to the airport. She did profit. She got the house, checked if he changed his will and pension beneficiaries, and he did. That must have burned her. Yeah, she inquired to see if she was able to get a payout from his insurance. She tried to get the proceeds of the GoFundMe that Tamara Demko set up by trying to claim that she was his widow. Of course, she was not his widow. They were divorced, so I don't know. I presume she didn't get that money. And she is making huge amounts of money through Social Security in the aftermath of Dan's death. She even changed one of the kids' middle names because the middle name was taken from one of Dan's grandparents. Don't think that's about safety, is it?
Year.
That's right.
Okay. And did you also eliminate your older son's middle name?
When I legally changed their names, I did.
And you just dropped that from the name?
I did.
Okay. And that was a name that came from Dan Markel's deceased maternal grandmother, is that correct?
The name started with an A, which was to honor my grandfather, Aaron Adelson, and the second half of his name was to honor Danny's grandmother.
Okay.
So we lost an honor to both families.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Garcia.
And if you believe that answer, you will literally believe anything. Carolina, I heard that she left 3 days later. But regardless, it was immediately after his murder that she left.
Thank you, Judge.
She got a friend to pick them up when she was being interviewed. So are you saying that she left for South Florida the same evening of the interview?
Ms. Adelson, I represent Mr. Garcia, and I'm going to ask you some questions, okay?
Okay.
Charlie's your older brother or
I'm-
younger brother?
I'm the youngest in the family, so both my brothers are my older brothers.
And how many years older is Charlie than you?
Okay, got you, Caroline.
He's approximately 3 years older.
Would you describe your relationship with your brother as a close relationship?
I would.
And the brother I'm referring to is Charlie. And just for the record, all the questions I have with regards to brothers is going to be focused just on your brother Charlie, okay?
Okay.
Charlie graduated high school,
He did.
college,
He did.
dental school,
He did.
so he has a substantial educational background.
Yes.
Would you consider him to be book smart?
He did very well in his classes.
So that would potentially be a yes. What about street smart? Do you think he was kind of street smart?
I think he's good with people.
And would it be fair to say that he has a wide range of friends, different types of friends?
He has a lot of friends.
Would you say, well, are there certain friends that he goes out nightclubbing with?
I don't know. He doesn't talk to me about night clubbing.
Okay. Well, when he has social events, do you ever go out with him socially?
I haven't in a long time. I'm pretty busy with my kids. But I have once or twice gone out with him.
And is it the same types of friends that he goes out to these social events with?
He would usually go with his roommate, who's, I don't think they're living together anymore, but they lived together for a while.
Would you agree with me that your brother Charlie was, I don't want to call him like a socialite, but he would frequent the nightclub scene?
I honestly don't know that.
So your single brother is a pretty handsome guy, right?
I think he's handsome.
Right. We've seen his pictures. Good-looking guy. Never been married, right?
No.
And what kind of car does he have?
For a while, what does he have? What is he driving right now?
Well,
He
let me-
likes
let me-
cars. Like
He has a lot of cars, right? And these aren't like Hondas or Toyotas. They're Mercedeses and Ferraris, right?
he drove an unmarked police car for a while.
But that wasn't my question. My question was, did he ever have a Mercedes?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and it wasn't like a C300. It was like a 5 Series, right?
I honestly don't know anything about cars.
Well, it was the bigger Mercedes, right?
It was
Right.
big.
It was the bigger one. And he also had a Ferrari, right?
I know he had one really fancy car, but
Caroline, no, right after the memorial service is when Wendy left, you say. Okay, yeah, which ties into 3 days later, I imagine, right? Dan's parents didn't get that day to see the kids or say goodbye. Yeah, and Wendy never even informed Dan's parents of the shooting. Didn't go to visit Dan in hospital either. Dan was still alive until the following day, the 19th.
I don't remember what brand it was.
Okay. So you're telling this jury that you don't remember if your brother had a Ferrari?
Cars are really not important to me. You saw mine. I drove a minivan.
Well, but you're not your brother, right?
I am not my brother.
And
No,
you-
I knew he had a fancy car. I just don't remember if it was a Porsche or if it was a Ferrari. It was something fancy.
Something kind of fancy,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So you have a pretty successful brother, right?
He's successful, yeah.
And he likes to show off his success with his extravagant cars, correct?
He likes fancy cars.
Okay. Handsome guy, in good shape, right?
He's handsome.
And you indicated that he had a lot of girlfriends, right?
Yes.
Now, I know you didn't go clubbing with him, but were you aware that he would go to like Miami Beach a lot?
I mean,
Or South Beach?
Sure. I mean, I couldn't say how often he went out or where he was going. It's just not something I would really talk to him about.
When your brother took you out to dinner and you vomited, do you remember what the restaurant was?
I do.
Which restaurant was it?
It's called Uvia.
Okay, where is that located?
It's on Lincoln Road.
Okay, and Lincoln Road's in South Beach, right?
Lincoln Road is in South Beach.
Are you aware if your brother took steroids?
No, I'm not aware if he took steroids.
What about if your brother used illicit drugs?
I'm not aware of my brother using illicit drugs.
And the fact that you're not aware if he used it doesn't mean he didn't use it, correct?
No, I'm just saying I don't know.
Do you know when Luis Rivera started serving your brother drugs?
I don't know anything about that.
Your brother would frequent South Beach and Miami Beach sometimes, correct?
I don't know.
You don't know? The restaurant that he took you to was in South Beach, correct?
I was living close to that restaurant at the time.
And your parents had a home in South Beach also, correct?
My parents did not have a home in South Beach. They were renting an apartment.
I'll rephrase it. They had a place to stay in South Beach, correct?
Correct.
I have no further questions.
McBain?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Adelson.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today? You doing okay?
I'm fine.
You nervous?
Am I nervous?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm nervous.
Okay. Now, you stated on direct examination that you are a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
Stressful
So
business,
you
huh?
understand the oath that you took before you took the stand, correct?
Yes,
You know the consequences of not being truthful here,
of course.
and you also have a separate obligation as an attorney to tell the truth, right?
Of course.
Okay. Now, do you know who killed Dan Markel?
No,
Did your brother have anything to do with killing Dan Markel?
I don't believe so.
Your mother is Donna Adelson.
She is.
Where is she right now?
Right now, she's with my children
Not in
In-
Tallahassee.
in Miami.
Okay, she's not in jail?
No,
She's never been arrested before?
no.
Okay. She's not even testifying in this case, is she? To your
No.
knowledge?
To my knowledge, no.
What about your brother Charlie? Is he in Miami right now?
He's probably in Fort Lauderdale right now?
Okay, but he hasn't been arrested,
No,
hasn't been charged,
no,
and he's not testifying in this case, is he?
no.
Okay. Are you aware if the state has attempted to subpoena them to come to court?
I believe they have received a subpoena to come to court.
Okay, and it was for them to come and testify in this trial, or you don't know?
I don't know for certain.
Okay. But you know they've received some form of subpoena?
I heard about that.
Okay. When is the last time you spoke to your family? Your mom, in particular?
This morning, I called to check in on the boys.
Okay. How is your relationship with your parents now? Is it estranged in any way, or you still have a good relationship with your parents?
I still have a good relationship.
What about your brother Charlie?
I still have a good relationship.
When is the last time you spoke to Charlie?
Probably last week at some point.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that Charlie is a father.
He is.
When did he have his child? Is it a boy or a girl?
It's a boy.
Okay.
He was born in December 2017.
Okay. So about, I would say that's over a year after Miss McBain was arrested.
I couldn't say.
Okay. Do you know who the mother of that child is?
I do.
Who is she?
You want her name?
Yes.
Her name is Bree Price.
Okay. And is he married to her now?
He's not married.
Are they still together?
Depends on the day.
And do you know if he has any other girlfriends at this
I
point?
have no idea.
All right. Have you been keeping up with the media coverage in this case?
I don't watch any media related to this case.
Okay. So, but you are aware of the attention that has been brought on this case?
I'm aware only because of the constant death threats that I receive, yes.
Okay.
Take out your violins for Wendy, yeah, the constant death threats that she gets.
So just to specify, you haven't watched any of the specials that have been on air about this case?
I have not watched any of them.
Do you know if your parents have watched any of the specials on this case?
I mean, why would she want to take an interest in the investigation or the coverage into her kid's father's murder, right? A very good reason she doesn't want to watch it.
I advise them not to. They may have seen bits of them, but I don't know for certain.
What about your brother Charlie?
I don't know.
Did you watch the state's opening statement in this case?
I did not.
You did not?
I did not.
Okay. So you're not aware of what the state's theory is in this case?
I'm not.
Now, you mentioned on direct examination something about listening to some recordings that the state provided to you.
Yes.
Okay. Is that the first time you ever listened to those recordings?
Yes.
Do you know what those recordings are about?
There are many, many recordings.
Okay. Did they give you all of the recordings?
I don't know. I listened to what I was given, but I don't know if there's more.
How much time did it take you to listen to the recordings that you were given?
Again, I didn't listen to the entire thing, so probably about an hour to go through all of the recordings and listen to excerpts of each of them.
Of each of them. So you're not aware if the state gave you all of the recordings that they provide, that they have in their possession?
I have no idea.
Okay. Did they have you listen to any recordings that occurred before April 19th of 2016? Sorry, 2016.
So I'd have to see the document to remember the.
So April the 19th, 2016 is the day of the bump of Donna by the undercover agents. From this moment here. And then the FBI recorded Charlie and Katie's conversation at the Dolce Vita restaurant the following day. And as you can hear, they were recording the calls between Donna and Charlie. And this all played a huge part in their downfall, the way that they reacted to this, what they let slip through the conversations and what was recorded at the restaurant. Played a huge part in their downfall.
Exact date on it. I do remember my birthday's in April, so I remember the dates being close to that, but I don't remember exactly.
Did they ask you to listen to the phone call where Charlie Adelson is talking to Miss McBanwell about work?
I listened to something.
No, object, Judge.
Sustained.
So it's fair to say that they only let you listen to portions of the phone calls that they think are important.
I was given conversations and I listened to some of them to authenticate voices, but I don't know. I imagine they thought it was important for me to listen. That's why I did.
Did you listen to a phone call?
Objection.
Ask your question, don't answer until I rule, please, ma'am.
Judge, the bell will be rung if the question contains.
Let's go that far. Needed to wake y'all up. Go ahead, Ms. Blunt.
So the question was, Ms. Adelson, did they have you listen to any phone calls where it was a conversation between your brother and your mother, if you were able to identify any conversations like this?
I think I did yes.
Now I want to talk about the circumstances surrounding your actual divorce,
Okay.
which I believe you said was finalized in 2013, right?
Yes.
You just left your divorce papers on a mattress of Dan Markel in the house and left town. Is that correct?
No.
How is it that you delivered the divorce papers to him?
I called him to let him know that I wanted a divorce. It wasn't the first time I asked for a divorce, but it was the last time. And told him that I would see him when he got home. Not home, but back to Tallahassee. And then I did leave the papers for him, but I didn't leave town. I was still in Tallahassee.
Okay. So he was actually aware of that you were going to be seeking a divorce before you actually delivered the papers to him?
I had asked for a divorce several months earlier.
Okay.
That's when we started going to counseling. And he told me that if I tried to get divorced from him,
Yeah, April 2016, Pussycat. That was the day that Donna was bumped by the undercover agent, acting as a brother of either Garcia or Rivera. I think Rivera. And what's interesting is that Donna, you can see he's handing the note here to Donna, folded up, which gives some of the details of the extortion that's about to take place. That they were going to extort them because of the problems that the hitman was going through. So if you can take care of business, we won't rat you out, essentially. So then Donna didn't even open up the paper when, when the agent walked away from her. She just put it straight into her bag, folded up, because she knew what it was about. Because he said enough, right? She knew that she had been a part of this murder. So of course, why would she need to look at it? Put it straight into her handbag and continued along to pick up her grandkids. Then called Charlie really quickly, and then they met up the next day. And you can see from some of the conversations between them here, Charlie's asking, okay, does this involve me or other people? Donna says, well, probably the both of us. Probably the two of us. So you probably have a general idea what I'm talking about. Do you think someone is trying to blackmail you? Maybe. Could be. I don't know. Question for you. One thing I was going to tell you, obviously, don't talk about things in the apartment or any place. Oh, obviously. Charlie says, okay, I just want you to listen to me and I'll be able to talk to you in person when I see you tomorrow. But something regarding her son, something regarding his ex-girlfriend and the person asking my mom. Okay, this is to Katie McBanoa, got it. So she's telling Katie here in a roundabout way about the bump. Something regarding her son, something regarding his ex-girlfriend and the person asking my mom for some money. Yeah, and my mom said it involved your ex-girlfriend, which is Katie. So I don't even think she said who. I'm just like you're my last girlfriend, so that's why I'm calling you. Because he was starting to suspect, obviously, that Katie was a part of this extortion. And so the defense that Charlie came up with and his team came up with for his trial was that the hitmen killed Dan preemptively in order to extort Charlie. So they killed Dan first and then asked Charlie for the money or this will happen to someone else in your family. And he tried to make the argument that Katie was the one, actually getting the money from Charlie. She was the conduit. And of course, all the evidence shows how ridiculous that is because they were on fine terms. There's just no evidence whatsoever that Katie was extorting Charlie.
that I could leave with the clothes on my back and that he would take the kids and that I would be penniless. And so when I actually asked for a divorce, I thought it best not to be there.
So is it fair to say that this was not a mutual thing between the two of you, that Danny did not want
Hey, hybrid.
a divorce?
I don't think he wanted to get divorced.
How close is your brother's relationship, Charlie Adelson, with your mother, Donna Adelson?
I think they're close.
Would you characterize their relationship as closer than you are with your mother?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I do think they talk more frequently than I do, but I don't think closeness always has to do with the frequency of communication.
And you had said on direct that your
Sarah, so the bump was in 2016, so just shy of 2 years after the murder.
parents were not happy with
Hey, hybrid, Callie, how are
Dan
you?
Markel's behavior during the divorce.
No, they didn't think he was treating me well.
And is this just Donna Adelson, your mom, or was it both Donna and Harvey Adelson?
I'm sure both of my parents felt that way.
Did they ever express those feelings to you?
Yes,
Did they call him names?
yes.
Okay. Did one parent do that more than the other, or it was consistent between the
Oh,
two?
she sure is, Callie.
I think it was consistent between the two.
Okay. What kind of names did they call him?
I mean, I've had my memory recently refreshed, so I saw things, but my memory is, I don't remember name calling, but I did recently see emails where they called him names.
Okay. Now, after the divorce, you started dating
I
other
did.
people, right? When is it that you had your first, I wouldn't say serious boyfriend, but your first boyfriend after Dan Markel?
Probably within a month.
Okay. When did he, if you know, did he start seeing anybody else after the divorce?
He did, but I don't know when it started.
Okay. And is that Amy, or was it some other person?
I know about Amy, but I don't know if there were other people before Amy.
Did you know what, at the time of the murder, do you know what, if any, future plans Dan Markel had?
I couldn't really say about his future plans, but I felt like by then he and Amy were pretty serious, and he was trying to spend as much time in New York as possible.
Do you know if his intention was to, and it's only if you know, it was his intention to remain in Tallahassee, or do you know if he was planning to leave the state?
I think he always planned on leaving Tallahassee. It was just a question of when.
Okay. Do you know why? Did he have an aversion to Tallahassee, or
No,
just...
it wasn't an aversion to Tallahassee.
Okay.
He was a very ambitious person, and so from the moment we arrived in Tallahassee, he was always looking for a stepping stone toward a better university.
Yeah, just notice how different she comes across, her behaviour, when she's actually relating some truth here. She's telling the truth here about how Dan felt about Tallahassee. She's so much more natural and her words come out easier, right? And it's in such stark contrast to when she's minimizing or deflecting. It's so obvious, isn't it?
University where he could teach.
And he took a very special interest in what he did, which is, he's a law professor.
Right.
He graduated from Harvard, and he studied criminal law.
Right, that was his specialty.
Okay. And did there come a time where you were dating someone by the name of Jeffrey Lacasse?
Yes,
You know who that is.
I do.
Do you remember when you started dating Jeffrey Lacasse?
I don't remember exactly, but 2013.
They started dating in September 2013, and they were a proper couple by March 2014.
Okay. Do you remember how long you dated him for?
I remember it was less than a year, but probably more than 6 months.
Were you dating him at the time leading up to the homicide, which would be July 18th, 2014?
We broke up a few weeks before Danny was killed, or a week or so. We broke up before Danny was killed.
How would you describe your relationship with Jeffrey Lacasse?
I mean, I think it took different turns. I think it was more casual in the beginning, and then it was getting more serious. And then I was feeling more committed to the relationship, and then in late June.
Yeah, Carolina, that's Carol Steinbeck that you're referring to there. I'd really advise people to check out his channel. He's covered this in great depth. He went down to court recently for the Charlie Adelson trial. He was there during the closing statements and verdict, I believe.
We had this big fight, and after that point, I didn't really want to be with him anymore.
Do you know what the fight was about? Do you
I do.
remember?
I remember what the fight was about.
What was it about?
He didn't trust me.
In terms of
He
seeing
thought
other people?
He thought I was cheating on him.
Okay. And you said you broke up, when was that?
We broke up, it would have been one of the last weekends in June.
So fairly close to when the homicide was occurred.
Right.
Now, that spring break, which would have been the month of March, didn't you and Jeffrey Lacasse come down to Miami?
We did.
Okay. And you stayed with your brother, Charlie?
We did.
Okay. And do you know at that time who he was dating?
I don't.
Okay. Does it sound, if I say that was when he was dating Catherine Magbanua, is that a correct statement or you don't remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember having dinner?
I think she's going to talk about the hot tub incident here. This is Katie McBanua's defense attorney. It's quite a unique situation here because all attorneys involved here have reason to expose Wendy for their own purposes. But the bathtub incident was down in Charlie's house around about March the 15th, 2014, so what, 4 months before the murder. And Jeffrey related the fact that Charlie was bragging about hiring a hitman, essentially.
With Jeffrey Lacasse at a restaurant and with your brother, and that Catherine McBanua was there.
Yeah, that channel there that Hybrids put in, Mentor Lawyer, they have a lot of good footage of interviews and testimony in regards to this. And there's another link, guys.
I have a vague recollection of it.
Okay. And do you remember if this restaurant had outside seating?
We always used to go to the same restaurant, and so I know the restaurant, it has outside seating.
Okay. And when you met Catherine McBanua, Charlie introduced you to her as his girlfriend?
Probably.
Okay.
Definitely as someone he was seeing, right? I don't remember if he used the term girlfriend, but in a romantic kind of way.
Okay.
Not as just a friend.
And am I characterizing Mr. Charlie Adelson correctly when I say, you know, you had said he has lots of girlfriends?
I've met lots of girls over the years, which is why it's hard to remember whether I had dinner with one person versus another.
Do you know what his thoughts and beliefs are in marriage? Does he not believe in marriage?
I don't think he's so pro-marriage, no.
Okay. Do you know how many
Yep, Charlie is the playboy in this tale.
how many times you met Katie? We talked about the time on the beach, and then we've already now talked about dinner.
I remember vaguely those two. I don't remember any other time.
Do you remember the name of the person that was in that picture with you?
No,
Okay. Does Yindra Velasquez Mascaro sound familiar?
no.
Okay. Now, you didn't have a really close relationship with Katie, right?
No,
Okay. Did you know that Katie has 2 kids?
I did.
Remember, Ms. Kawas, we're not going to get a first name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge, I apologize. Did you know that Miss McBanua had children?
I did know that.
Okay. Did you ever discuss with Miss McBanua the details of the divorce that you had before she even knew who your brother was?
That wouldn't be possible because I only met her with my brother.
Okay, so you didn't talk, your relationship wasn't a close relationship where you would talk to her about Dan Markel?
No,
Do you ever remember having a conversation with Miss McBanua about Dan Markel and your divorce?
it's very possible that I brought it up, but not.
Nothing stands out.
No, not at all.
Now, I want to talk to you about the time of the murder, okay? The day before the homicide, all right?
Okay.
You had talked about your custody situation with Dan Markel, that it was a week on, week off. Is that correct?
That's right.
And
at
an
that time.
overnight stay switch on a Wednesday.
That's my best memory.
So a better way to describe it would be if it's your week, you have the boys, but on Wednesday night they will sleep at Dan Markel, do an overnight sleepover at Dan Markel,
Right.
and then return them to you the next day.
Or return them to school. And then,
you pick them up in the evening.
right.
So the day of the homicide, do you remember what day of the week that was?
I believe it was Friday.
Okay, so the day before would have been a
I
Thursday.
believe.
Right.
You
Do
know it was
remember what you were
Friday
doing that
quite
day?
well.
I don't.
Is there any way that you would have been walking down Trescott Drive with your two sons the day before his murder?
No, I don't live in walking distance, so there's no reason why I would have been walking down the street, no.
You and Mr. Markel weren't on that kind of talking or speaking terms where you would be at the Trescott home and he wasn't there?
No,
Okay. You wouldn't go and take the boys for a walk on Trescott Drive?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. And as far as you knew at that time, the kids, what school were they attending?
They went to creative preschool.
Okay, and when you would drop the kids off at creative preschool, do you have to sign them in?
You do have to sign them in.
Okay, and then, so there should be a record of the days that the boys would have been at the preschool.
That's right.
What time would you drop the boys off? Do you remember?
I
Is it
d-
an early morning thing, or?
I would drop them off in the morning. I don't remember, maybe it was 8, maybe it was 9.
Oh, but nothing late, like 11?
I don't think so.
And then what would be the usual time you pick them up in the afternoon?
I think it would depend on whether I was teaching or if I had court, what I was up to, but my guess is sometime between 3 and 6, I would pick them up.
So would it be fair to say that, you know, around 11 o'clock in the morning, the boys would probably be in school on a weekday?
That would be right.
Okay. Do you know someone by the name of Whitney?
I do know Whitney.
Who is Whitney?
Whitney was a girlfriend of my brother's.
Okay. Do you know who introduced Charlie to Mr. Adelson to Whitney?
I don't.
Do you know how long they were dating?
I don't.
Do you remember when they started dating?
I don't remember when they started dating.
Okay. When did your brother buy you that TV?
I remember having the TV in the house on Aqua Ridge. So sometime after the fall of 2012. Sometime between 2012, 2013, something like that.
Do you remember making a phone call to Charlie that morning and having a conversation with him without going into the details of that conversation?
Which morning?
The morning of Danny's murder.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Judge. Mr. Markel's murder. Do you remember how long you spoke for?
I don't remember how long I spoke for.
Now, you had described your brother as a talker. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I described him as more of a joker than
Joker.
a talker, but he does
you-
talk.
Do you remember the circumstances under which he made that statement that the state talked about hiring a hitman, but instead I got you this TV? Who else was around when this statement was made?
Well, he tends to repeat himself, so he kept repeating that joke because he thought it was funny.
Okay, but do you remember the time frame of when that happened? Like, was
You also repeated the joke many times, didn't you? You certainly repeated the incident many times, 3 or 4 times on the week of Dan's murder.
this way before, you know, during the course of your divorce, or was this after
It would have been when he bought the TV.
when he bought the TV? And that would be after the divorce?
Well, not after I filed for divorce, right? But not after the divorce was finalized. So sometime after, I really don't remember when I got the TV, but maybe sometime starting with the fall of 2012, sometime around then, but it could have been 2013.
Do you know, now your parents' apartment on South Beach, are they still living there?
No,
Okay, so they moved.
they did.
At the time, do you know how much their rent was in that apartment?
I have no idea.
You said they did not own that property.
No.
Okay. And now you said that you stayed in Tallahassee after the homicide.
I stayed for a few days.
Okay. And do you recall if Detective Isom tried to call you
After I had left,
before you left Tallahassee, but after the memorial service for Mr. Markel?
he did not call me before I left Tallahassee, no.
Okay. Did he try to call you?
He called me when I was already on the road.
Okay.
About 4 hours away from Tallahassee.
All right. Did he ever try to talk to you again?
No.
Has the prosecution When is the first time the prosecution reached out to you to speak to you about what happened?
I don't remember ever talking with the prosecution.
Object. Proper question.
Let's go sidebar.
Proceed, Your Honor? Okay. Do you know if Detective Isom ever tried to reach out to your parents?
I don't think he did.
Do you know if Detective Isom ever tried to speak to your brother Charlie?
I don't think he did.
Now, you are testifying today under a state subpoena, correct?
Correct.
And that state subpoena gives you immunity for your testimony, right?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury, since you're an attorney, what immunity is?
Immunity is freedom from prosecution.
So that means that anything you say today can't be used against you if the state decides to arrest you later on.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me.
I long for the period where I can replay that little clip there. Almost reminds me of Jodi Arias. A jury is not going to convict me. She is now an unindicted conspirator, officially, in the words of the prosecution. I am still convinced she is going to get arrested. In a way, I think if they can just get her in court in front of a jury, once they lay out all the information, she could be in trouble with a jury, right? And we have to presume that there's got to be more evidence that we're just not aware of, that the prosecution has in their back pocket, that they may well get from the devices from Donna and Harvey recently. Oh, did he, Carolina? He didn't sound in good health. So we have to presume that there's more information that they have and are looking into. And there's also the potential that at some point in time, Charlie could flip on Wendy. There's already indications that that could happen. Probably won't happen until Donna is convicted. But there's without doubt a huge amount of circumstantial evidence in regards to Wendy, and I have a feeling if there's more information that the prosecution has, she is not going to be liked by any jury. So hopefully we get to play this little excerpt again in the future. That'd be very satisfying.
You are testifying today under a state subpoena, correct?
Correct.
And that state subpoena gives you immunity for your testimony, right?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury, since you're an attorney, what immunity is?
Immunity is freedom from prosecution.
So that means that anything you say today can't be used against you if the state decides to arrest you later on.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me.
Do you know if they consider you a suspect?
I don't know.
You know now.
Now, the life insurance policy that the state was asking you about, have you received any money from the life insurance policy from Mr. Markel?
I don't know if maybe in the beginning, the life insurance that Danny owed me about $100,000 when he died. I do think that his family made that disbursement. I don't know if they paid that through the life insurance policy, but other than that, there's been, the life insurance policy is money put away for the kids. I've never seen it.
Do you have access to that, or you have no control over that?
I have no control over that.
All right.
Obviously, I've said this before, but to anyone that's hearing this for the first time, the reason that he was not paying the divorce settlement was because, according to him, he discovered that Wendy had lied in some of her declaration of assets. He was also accusing her of theft, essentially, financial theft, and of family heirlooms and such. So who knows what the truth in all that is, but that was what Dan was That's what he was alleging.
All right, and I have, where did you say, so your boys are now down in Miami with your mother, correct?
At the moment, yes.
Okay. And you stopped letting Danny's parent, or Mr. Markel's parents see the boys, is that correct?
2 years after Danny died, I stopped visitation.
Okay, do you have,
Yes, she stopped any visitation of Dan's parents, of the grandkids, seeing the kids in 2016, just after Garcia was arrested and was named a suspect, and Rivera was named a suspect. As you might hear her say here, her justification was that she found out that Dan's parents had inquired about fostering options for the kids. Now, they were doing this in light of the potential circumstance that Wendy would be arrested as a temporary measure, right? But Wendy, as you'll hear here, is defining this of Dan's parents trying to take her kids away from her.
any intention of letting them see their grandchildren again?
I do. We've actually been in discussion the last few weeks.
No further.
Well, it took at least another 2 years, more likely 3 years, before Dan's parents did manage to get to see the kids again.
Questions, Judge?
This is 2019.
Redirect.
How many times have Dan's parents been able to see your boys in the last 5 years?
That's the allegation, Pussycat, that she stole hundreds of thousands, emptied out the safe when she left Dan. Yeah.
In the last 2 years after they died, they've been able to see them every time they've asked to see them.
Okay, what about the last 3 years?
Since 2016, they have not been permitted to see the boys.
They have not been permitted
That's right.
by you,
By me, yes.
right? And that's not through lack of trying on their part.
No, that's because of what they did.
Okay, but they want to see those boys, don't
They
they?
very much want to see the boys.
All right. And Dan Markel's sister is the, I'm not sure if this is the right word, but the executor of that trust for the boys, is that right?
I think she has fiduciary responsibility over the trust for the
All right,
boys.
thank you. That sounds right. Did you at one time hold that position in Dan's will?
Oh, before we got divorced, I probably did.
Okay, but sometime after the divorce, he changed that over to the sister.
He must have, yes.
Okay. And did you initiate proceedings to try to fight that decision that he made to make the sister the executor or the beneficiary, have the fiduciary duty for this
Could you write that again, Ethel? What particular emails did Wendy reply with the "what the fuck, mom"?
money over you, through the disbursement to your children?
Can you repeat can you
Okay,
rephrase the
so
question for
did
me?
you initiate any type of proceeding at any point to try to contest or fight Dan Markel's sister being appointed as this fiduciary for the life insurance for the boys?
I don't believe that I did.
You did not.
I don't remember doing that, no.
No further questions.
I need your
It's always a bit of a red flag when someone says, "I don't believe that I did this or that," right?
have a question of this question. If you do, write it down. We'll go sidebar.
Okay, Sarah, at the time, 3 years prior to this trial, 2016, when Rivera and Garcia were named as suspects, Dan's parents had inquired about fostering options in the event that Wendy was arrested. and Wendy found out about this, and that was the reason that she gives for depriving them of any visitation. They didn't see the kids again for another 6 years. Now, obviously, Dan's parents would say that this was just a temporary measure that they were looking into if Wendy happened to get arrested, because obviously Donna would try and maintain, you know, would make their own arrangements, right? Cool, Sarah. Yeah.
Ms. Adelson, I don't remember what it related to exactly. I mean, I remember you saying this, and one of the jurors had a question about, you said your memory had been refreshed about something. What did you mean by that?
So over 5 years have passed since Danny died, and I'm
Speak
sorry,
to them.
sorry. So more than 5 years have passed since Danny died, and a lot of the things that we're talking about today, I just don't remember at all. And so to refresh my memory, to make sure that I could remember things, certain documents were shown to me, emails, legal pleadings from the case, so that I could remember what was happening at that time.
Yeah, I'm going to show Jeffrey's testimony during this very same trial after this, Sarah.
One of the jurors was a little confused with the timing. You had said you had a boyfriend, and that it was not clear to them whether you said it was a month after your separation and filing for divorce or a month after it was finalized.
Sure. So I started dating someone who was a friend of mine for many years, and it didn't become romantic until after I had filed for divorce. So about a month after I filed for divorce, someone who was a friend in my life became more like a boyfriend than a friend.
Okay. What was wrong with the television that had to be repaired?
I think one of my kids.
Yeah, this is a very interesting case, Ivy. It is a rabbit hole. If you're interested in catching up on this, you may want to watch back some of my previous lives on this. It's a crazy case, and it's not over yet. We're really just halfway through this story because Donna is in prison, is in jail right now, awaiting trial. So we have that to go through, and we have the potential of Wendy, who's on the stand right now, being arrested, and Harvey, the grandfather, has also been named as an unindicted conspirator. So it's very interesting.
Might have thrown something at it, so there was a crack in the TV.
And why have Mr. Markell's parents not been allowed to see the grandchildren?
Well, they were allowed to.
Oh, okay, I thought that's what you meant, Ethel. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up because it is always important to try and be objective. I mean, I think most people suspect Wendy's guilt here, right? But there are hints in the communication that has been shown in court of what was coming from Donna to Wendy, right? And there's hints in those emails where you can see that Wendy is reticent about certain things, that Donna is very much trying to persuade her to take part in certain things. So yeah, if she replied, "What the fuck, Mom?" I wouldn't be that surprised, right? The big question is it conceivable that Charlie and Donna arranged Dan's murder without Wendy giving the okay for this? And there's a whole bunch of evidence, circumstantial evidence, which supports the argument that that's just not the case. But unfortunately, there's not so much of a smoking gun with Wendy as there is with Donna and Charlie. That's the problem.
See the grandchildren for 2 full years, and I used to cook meals for them and arrange play dates. We had sleepovers, and then I found out that that Ruth Markell had reached out to a foster care agency to try to place my children with that agency, and I became very worried that they were trying to take my children away from me. And so after that time, I didn't feel a level of trust that they could spend time with the kids. I was afraid they were trying to take them from me.
Maybe, just maybe, they suspect that you arranged their son's murder. Just maybe, right? And bear in mind that Dan's parents, from the murder up until this very day, have never been allowed to be with the kids on their own without Wendy there. Bear in mind, she wiped out Marco's names from the kids shortly after the murder. Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes, very much, right? There's a definite vibe of Elizabeth Holmes about this woman. Hey, Smiley.
Follow up, Ms. Captain.
Your reference to the foster care.
Well, that's what I was saying, Sarah. Wendy's interpretation of what happened is that they tried to place the kids in foster care to try and take her kids away from her. But what they would say is that they made inquiries because they were expecting Wendy to be arrested in 2016 when the two hitmen got caught.
Care agency, does that have to do with an email that was sent to me from your mother-in-law?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, Carolina says, no way a kid can break a TV screen, not a 4-year-old. They aren't as fragile as they look. Yeah, so the kids were 4 and 3 at the time of Dan's murder. I think I said 4 and 5 the other day. It was actually 4 and 3 they were. And as Jeffrey indicated in his interviews, there was no way. The TV looked like it had been punched by an adult or hit by a baseball bat, right? It was that badly damaged. And he said there's just no way that those kids did that damage. And the obvious implication is that Wendy damaged the TV for certain purposes, right? And needed Jeffrey to be aware of this because she made Jeff and the kids watch this TV, watch a film on this TV, even though it was unwatchable. Even though Jeff suggested using another TV in a different room, she insisted that they sit watching this TV. And we know about the issue with the TVs being used as a code word within this family. It was a code word for the murder of Dan, essentially.
All right, that Dan's mother.
Yes.
And that email was in reference to, in the event that you and your parents were arrested in association with this crime, could I please contact that particular agency to assist with the children in the event they have no guardian temporarily until they could get down here from where they reside in Canada? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they were not trying to take your children unless there was an event where you were unable to care for them.
But because there's no event in which I would be unable to care for them, that feels like trying to take away my children.
Okay, thank you.
No event, huh? There was no potential that you could have been arrested. Okay, Wendy.
Garcia.
No follow-up question for
McMahon.
There was literally a law introduced in Florida to prevent grandparents being denied access in situations like this, in the aftermath of what Wendy did by depriving them of access. So bear that in mind.
Yes, it does.
All right, that Dan's mother. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they were not trying to. Is that correct?
That's
in temporarily until they could get down here from where they reside in Canada.
Right,
Is
Sarah.
that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they were not trying to take your children unless there was an event where you were unable to care for them.
But because there's no event in which I would be unable to care for them, that feels like trying to take away my children.
Okay, thank you.
Garcia.
No follow-up question for
McMahon.
Right, Ethel? She's worn the same suit
And this
every
email
trial.
about you about there being possible arrests of you and your family that came right after Catherine McBanwell was arrested, right?
I don't remember exactly the timeline of that.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Ms. Captain?
No, sir.
All right, you can step down. Do we need to keep this witness any further? Anybody need her any further? McBanwell?
It was not long. It was in and around the time Katie got arrested. Katie was arrested October the 1st, 2016, which was days, weeks after the two hitmen were named as suspects. Let's just see her, if we get to see her walking out.
One brief moment, Your Honor.
Hold on a second, Ms. Adelson.
Under subpoena, Your Honor.
You remain under their subpoena.
Your
Right,
Honor,
to you.
Ms. Adelson has a flight tonight at 7 p.m. May she return home and be
Right.
subject
You
to
can
recall?
communicate with her about any arrangements if you need her to come back, but she's free to go at this point.
Your Honor, we'll reach out to her attorney when we need to.
Okay. All right, last thing I get this afternoon is
There she goes. Good performance. Job done, Wendy, right? So let's contrast what was mostly horseshit there with, in my view, with Jeffrey Lacasse's testimony during the very same trial.
everybody be seated, please. Call your next witness, Ms. Captain.
State calls Jeffrey Lacasse.
If you'd face the clerk and be sworn, please, sir. Raise your right hand.
Swear affirm testimony about giving this case to be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
You may proceed.
Sir, please introduce yourself and spell your first and last name.
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Lacasse, Jeffrey. Excuse me. Last name spelled Lacasse.
How are you employed, Mr. Lacasse?
I'm employed at Florida State University as an associate professor.
All right, what about back in 2014?
I was an assistant professor at Florida State
All
University.
right, and did you have a relationship with Wendy Adelson?
I did.
What type of relationship was that?
We started dating in the fall of 2013. She became my girlfriend around March of 2014.
Okay, and when did that relationship end?
July of 2014.
And when the breakup occurred, was there a big argument that occurred that precipitated the breakup?
We had a argument in late June. She went to South Florida for a couple of weeks, and when she came back, we tried to make things work, and it didn't really work. She sort of cut off contact.
All right, and during that argument when she went to South Florida, was she in South Florida on July 1st, 2014?
I believe she was. I dropped her off at her house on June 29th, I believe.
Okay. And during the course of your relationship with Ms. Adelson, did you ever meet her family?
I did.
Who did you meet?
I met her brother. We went to South Florida for an alternative spring break, went to Immokalee, and I had dinner with her brother. And I met her mother at her house just very briefly, maybe 10, 15 minutes at dinner. And when I would pick her up and the kids were there with the grandparents, I would have just a couple moments interaction with them. I didn't have a lot of contact.
Okay. And what about Catherine McBanwell? Did you ever have an occasion to meet her?
Yeah, I went to dinner with her. I believe it was on March 11th when we went over there to meet Charlie.
Okay, so who was present at that meal on March 11th? And that's 2014?
That's correct. It was myself, Wendy Adelson, Charlie, and Katie.
Charles Adelson
Charles
and
Adelson and Catherine McBanwell.
Thank
That's right.
you. What about Sigfredo Garcia? Did you ever have an occasion to meet him?
I did not. I've never met him.
Was Ms. Adelson very close to her parents and her brother Charlie?
Extremely close.
I want to ask you about June 4th, 2014. Do you recall an event that occurred that day that was unusual?
Yeah, I remember a couple of unusual occurrences on June 4th.
Could you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, I had met Ms. Adelson at the Red Eye Coffee Shop in Midtown for a coffee about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were going to talk about our relationship a little bit. And she canceled a trip we had planned to California to visit my parents, which was scheduled for July 11th to 17th.
All right. And was she acting strangely that night?
Yeah, that night, she was a nervous wreck. to the point, and I couldn't put my finger on why at the time, to the point where she lived kind of way up Centerville where there was no convenience stores or anything close, and I actually took about 35 minutes and drove to a convenience store to get her Pepto-Bismol because she was such a nervous wreck and had a real nervous stomach that evening.
Okay. And did she ever tell you what the problem was?
No, she's very nonspecific about it.
All right. Were you aware during the course?
There is an implication that the reason that she was this way, this upset, is because June was when the initial attempt at the hit was. That's when the two hitmen drove up the first time.
Of your relationship with Ms. Adelson about her efforts to relocate to South Florida with the children?
I certainly was.
All right. And were you in her life when she learned that the court was not going to permit her to take the
No,
children
our first
to
date
South
was
Florida?
September 27th, 2013. So that was a topic of conversation on our first couple of dates, but it was in the past when we discussed it.
All right. And was Ms. Adelson happy about the fact that she was not able to relocate?
No, she was quite bitter about it, actually. It was, as I said, a topic that came up, that tone came up on those first two dates.
All right. Did she make any statements to you in reference to her brother considering options to take care of this problem with her not being able to relocate?
Yes, she did.
Sidebar.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Lacasse, when we broke, we were talking about statements made to you by Wendy Adelson about her brother considering options to take care of her relocation problem. What, if any, statements did she tell you to that effect?
Yes, ma'am. On July 13th, 2014, Wendy and I were speaking, and she asked me if she could share something with me confidentially. I told her sure. She mentioned, or she said, that Charlie had explored all options to take care of the problem, and that he had looked into having Professor Markel killed. It would cost about $15,000. I later talked to Investigator Isom and said that could have been $50,000. They sound an awful lot alike.
Okay, so you're not sure if she said 15 or 50.
That's right, but I'm confident she made that statement. I just can't remember the exact dollar amount. And she did state that was during the relocation battle the previous summer is when that had taken place.
All right. And the day that she made the statement to you was July 13th of 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
100% Ethel, 100%.
Did Mrs. Adelson tell you anything about the celebration dinner? Anything about a celebration dinner?
Yes.
Could you tell us about that, please?
Yes. A couple weeks after Professor Markel was murdered, we spoke on the phone, and she had mentioned that her and Charlie had gone to, these are her words, she said, Charlie and I went to what he described as a celebration dinner.
All right. And that was the dinner where she vomited?
That's right. That's correct.
And are you aware, Mr. Lacasse, that Ms. Adelson suggested you as a possible suspect in this homicide?
Yes, I am.
And where were you when Dan Markel was murdered?
I was on the road to Tennessee. I originally had a trip planned for 11 a.m. on Friday the 18th, and I had, at the last moment, changed my trip to Thursday night.
So you left early?
I left early without telling anyone, other than the people at the destination. Miss Adelson was the only person I had told in Tallahassee about the time that I was leaving, which was 11 a.m. on the 18th. I had informed her about that in around June 10th.
All right, so originally it was going to be July 18th at 11 a.m. would be your departure?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you be flying or driving?
I was driving.
All right, and it changed to Thursday night, so you left the night before and were in Tennessee at the time of the homicide?
That's correct.
No further.
Okay, I think initially I said that he was planning to fly initially and drove instead, so he was planning to drive regardless on July the 18th, leaving at 11 a.m., which would just tie in, wouldn't it, nicely to when the murder took place. And again, this is his car. Or this is a car very similar to his, the same model. I presume it must be the same kind of color as this car, which was the car the hitman drove. It's just one other indicator here.
Questions?
Cross.
Still morning. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Pronounce your last name for me again.
Lacasse.
Lacasse. Okay. Just want to make sure I got it right. Mr. Lacasse. So Wendy Adelson knew you were leaving, well, you told her you were leaving Friday morning.
Friday morning at 11, we had discussed it because we had some plans that got canceled, so we had discussed it in some detail, actually.
And your plan was to leave Tallahassee and to drive northbound?
Thomasville Road, eastbound, yes, sir.
Sure. Let me rephrase that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So your plan was to travel north of Tallahassee to Tennessee, correct?
That's correct.
And you told Wendy that, hey, listen, I'm going on this trip and I'm leaving Friday morning around 11 a.m., correct?
That's correct.
And do you recall what time the actual shooting took place?
I believe it was right around 11 a.m.
The same exact time that you'd be leaving the area?
It happened between 10:51 and 10:54 a.m.
That's correct.
And although it was for a business trip, if people didn't know what your plans were, would you agree with me that it may look like you're leaving the scene if you're traveling outside of the jurisdiction?
That's what I was concerned about, that if I had taken my trip at the scheduled time, I would have looked like I was fleeing, because I would have been driving, I would have taken Capitol Circle to Thomasville and been very close to Professor Markel's house, actually.
And when did you find out that Ms. Adelson, Wendy Adelson, had suggested that you may be involved in this?
I suspected it from the police interrogations, but they didn't explicitly say that. Eventually, I was able to view her interrogation video.
And by her, you mean Wendy Adelson?
Yes, sir.
And by interrogation video, you mean interview, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because, as you're aware, she has not been charged in this case, correct?
I'm aware of that, yes, sir.
And obviously, you haven't either.
Right.
Right. You've been cleared by law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your relationship with Wendy Adelson. You started dating her, give me a time period.
September 27th, 2013 was our first date.
And how long would you say that your relationship with her lasted?
Well, there was different phases of it. In that fall semester, we weren't exclusive. It was more casual. It became more serious late February, early March. So as far as a serious, I'm your boyfriend, you're my girlfriend sort of thing, just March through July.
Okay. So you started casually dating in September of 2013, and it got more serious at the beginning of 2014, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And how did you meet Miss Adelson? How did you guys first have a date?
Yeah, through mutual friends.
Okay, so it wasn't like on a social media dating app or anything else?
No.
Okay. Were you aware if Miss Adelson was participating in online?
Incidentally, Wendy met Dan, from what I recall her saying, through an online dating app.
Dating?
I think I knew that, I knew that she had dated online in the past. I did not know the time frame.
One of your concerns, okay, so once you guys became exclusive, and by exclusive, I mean you called her your girlfriend and she called you her boyfriend, is that fair?
That's correct, and I was involved with the kids at that point and things like that.
And it got to the point where she introduced you to her family, right?
That's right.
And you indicated that there was a dinner where you met Charlie Adelson?
That's right.
Kind of a good-looking guy, right?
Sure.
Right. Works out?
Yes.
When you went on, when you had your double date, where it was you, Wendy Adelson, Charlie, and Miss Magbanua, did you see what kind of car Mr. Adelson pulled in?
I don't recall seeing his car in the parking lot. We then went to his house, so I saw his garage and got a look at some of the vehicles he owned, but not that at dinner.
What kind of vehicles does he have?
Ferrari is the one that stood out to me.
Do you remember the color of the Ferrari?
I don't.
Did you make any comments to Wendy about the Ferrari?
Well, Wendy used to talk about Charlie having a Ferrari. I
Oh.
mean, that was, she would say, my brother's a character, he has a Ferrari, he has an undercover cop car, he has I think a nice Benz in addition, or some luxury car.
So she knew what a Ferrari was, right?
Sure, well, sure.
So it's not like, she didn't say he's got a Porsche and you saw a Ferrari, right?
No, it was a Ferrari, and I actually remember discussing the cost of maintenance with Charlie. There were some downsides to having a Ferrari.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's tough. So pretty extensive car collection, right?
He had multiple cars, yeah. I don't know exactly how many.
And
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
did you learn what he did for a living?
Yeah, I knew he was a periodontist from speaking with Wendy.
And was that the only night you had direct contact with Mr. Adelson, Charlie Adelson?
That's the only contact I ever had with him that night.
Did he appear to have, did he appear to be intelligent?
He had, that's a difficult question. I just met him the one night. That's a big judgment.
I'll withdraw that. Let me
Yeah,
ask a more important question. Was he socialized, was he drinking that night?
I don't recall if he was drinking. He was holding forth. He was talking a lot. He was confident. That was my impression of him.
He was talking a lot?
Yes.
Did you ever see him go to the bathroom?
I don't recall.
So I think we're going to get to the hot
Did
tub
you ever
incident.
see him, was he perspiring more than a normal person would during dinner?
This is 5 years ago. I don't remember. We were outside, and it was, not cool that time of year, but yeah.
Okay, so you're outside in like an open area restaurant?
Yeah, we were at the Yardbird on the patio.
Okay, the Yardbird in South Beach?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you witness Charlie Adelson doing cocaine that night?
I did not.
So this is a guy who's in South Beach, right? Drives a Ferrari, right?
Yes.
What, had Wendy previously described him as having a lot of girlfriends?
Sure.
Handsome guy, probably could get attention of women.
I would presume so.
But your only face-to-face meeting was that dinner, correct?
Well, that dinner, and then we went back to his house and hung out in his hot tub for a little while, but that was it.
And during that time that you went to his house to hang up in the hot tub, did you see him ever go to the bathroom, or was he ever outside of your personal space?
Yeah, I think all of us were in and out of that hot tub at various points because we were sitting there a little while.
At any point did Charlie Adelson? Now, look, you're a law professor, correct?
Professor of social work, actually.
Correct. Okay. I'm sorry. You're a professor at the university, correct? I apologize, not law professor.
Yeah.
You're an educated person, correct?
Sure.
You'll agree with me that a layperson wouldn't solicit you to commit a murder, correct?
Objection. Argumentative.
Sustained.
I'll re-ask this. Did Charlie Adelson ask you to kill Dan Markel?
Did Charlie ask me to
Did he
kill him?
ask you?
No.
Of course not. And
Mr.
I apologize. I'll withdraw the of course not. And you'll agree with me that at no point did you give him any reason to believe that you would be someone that would do such a nefarious act, correct?
No.
Okay.
Strange
When
questions there.
The prosecutor asked you about June 4th, of 2014. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
And you said that you guys were at the Red Eye Coffee Shop, right?
That's correct.
And around what time was that?
I had a hair appointment at 2 or 3, so it was at 1 or 2.
And so in the early afternoon,
Could have been as early as 12:30, sir. I mean,
12:30.
Yeah.
Okay. So around 12:30 on June 4th, 2014, correct?
that's correct.
You indicated that she was and by she I mean Wendy Adelson, that she was acting unusual.
That's correct.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
Did you ask her what was wrong?
I did ask her what was wrong. It was very nonspecific. That happened with Wendy quite a bit, where she was upset and there was not an exact name put to why.
Was she upset often?
Yes.
Would she get these kind of physical reactions often, that her stomach would hurt or that she would ask you to get her medicine?
I got to know her better in the spring, so I saw more of it than I would have in the fall. That was the only time I can recall that was not an average thing. I think that's why I remember it, because it was unusual.
And you said that you drove about 35 minutes to get her medicine?
Yeah, it could have been 25, 35 minutes, but where she lived was not convenient to run to the store, so it was a discussion like, do we want to do that? It's all the way down there, and she was so nervous, I thought, no, I'm going, so.
Did she go with you?
No, she did not. She had the kids that night, so she stayed with the children.
Did she make any kind of doctor's appointments shortly thereafter, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Now, you indicated that you guys became boyfriend and girlfriend at the beginning portion of 2014. Is that a correct statement, sir?
Yes, sir.
And when would you tell the members of this jury that your relationship with her ended?
Well, that's a little complicated. On July 14th, we went on a date. And when I got home, she had sent me an email saying, I need a week to think. Please don't contact me for the next week. And so that was the Monday before Professor Markell was killed. And then we didn't talk for maybe 10 or 12 days after the murder. So I assumed it was, internally, I assumed it was over, that night. When you get an email like that, you're probably figuring it's over. But in subsequent phone calls, she acted as if it was still a slightly open issue. And we closed that down by phone calls that, obviously we're going to both move on here.
Did you ever question her loyalty to you in your relationship with her?
With regularity, yes.
And when you say with regularity, when did you first become suspicious? Now, let me ask this question first. You were concerned that she was seeing other men, right?
I was.
Okay. And when did you first start getting this concern?
Probably March, April timeframe, I started to wonder. So not too long after we became a couple, I guess what I was wondering is, have we really become a couple, or is she still doing what she was doing before?
Was it like, did you find like text messages or direct messages on social media that made you kind of go, what's going on here?
No, I didn't see any text messages or anything on social media. Her behavior was just erratic. She would disappear. She would get home very late at night. So there were signs like that.
Would you talk to her about it?
I tried to.
Okay. So let me ask it this way.
Yeah.
Did she understand that you were concerned about her being loyal to you, or your relationship being a monogamous one?
To be completely honest, I think we kind of pussyfooted around that until we had that big fight at the end of June. That's what that argument was about.
Let's talk about that big fight.
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you walk the members of the jury through what happened?
Yeah, I had taken Wendy to Gainesville with me. I was teaching in the off-campus program at UF for the weekend, so I took her with me.
I'm sorry, was it just you and her, or did she bring the kids?
No, it's just me and her.
So like a romantic getaway to Gainesville?
Well, work/pleasure. I teach during the day. She works in a coffee shop. We have dinner with friends at night, that kind of stuff. It's a nice area down
Sounds
there.
nice.
Yeah, it was nice. And weekend started off fine. The Saturday night, we sort of got into it over this stuff. I confronted her about the fact that I suspected that she had been seeing other men.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So you're at dinner?
We were actually up in the hotel room. The night was basically over. It was pretty late. It was 9 or 10 o'clock at night when this discussion happened.
Okay. And had she had any alcoholic beverages at that point?
We both had, but I think just 1 or 2 glasses of wine a couple hours earlier.
Just socially with dinner, maybe?
Yeah, that was.
Okay.
There was no more drinking than that.
And did you say, listen, I think this, that, or the other? Did you have any specifics, or were you just giving a vague, I'm concerned about where this relationship is?
The latter. I was pretty specific. I told her I was very concerned. I was particularly.
I agree, Ethel. Yeah, there was probably not really any other men. It was just all the machinations of what to do about Dan coming from the family to Wendy that was causing the erratic behavior that Jeff was perceiving as being possibly she was seeing other people, right?
Concerned because the way she had framed our relationship was, you're not just becoming my boyfriend. I have children, I'm a mother. It's like I was auditioning for the job of husband and father is actually sort of how it felt in retrospect. So I bonded with the kids pretty tightly, and as you can imagine in a relationship, that kind of discussion gets more complicated when you're serious and there's kids. And she had been talking about me moving in. She had told me not to buy a house. She had told me not to buy a Jeep, that I needed to buy a vehicle that 2 car seats could fit in. So
it sounds like you guys were heading down that path.
yeah, hence why I raised the issue, because I had some intuitions that everything wasn't quite right. Her behavior had been a little erratic, and I was worried about moving in and ending up in a really bad situation, actually.
So would it be fair to say that she was saying the wrong things, but her actions were speaking louder than her words?
That's not a bad summary. I was getting 2 very different messages based on behavior or what she was speaking to me, what she was saying. Yeah.
Did that argument or that discussion, did you feel it the next morning?
What do you mean by feel it, sir?
Was she acting any different the following morning?
Oh, the next day was probably the most awkward car ride I've ever had in my life. We rode from Gainesville to Tallahassee. She was crying. I was very upset. It was a very awkward 3-hour drive.
It's a 3-hour drive?
3 or 4, however long it is to.
Okay, from Gainesville to Tallahassee,
Yeah.
however long that was.
Yeah, exactly, sorry.
And this was in June, you said June 20?
That would have been June 29th, that's the Sunday, the last Sunday in June.
Could you rephrase that, Caroline? I'm not quite sure what you mean.
2 weeks later, on July 13th, Wendy tells you, or Wendy has this discussion with you that the prosecutor elicited, right?
Yes.
From June 29th to July 13th, would you say your relationship with Wendy after that awkward, that long 2 or 3 hour, 4 hour, however long it is, from Gainesville to Tallahassee, emotional car ride, right?
Yes.
She's crying,
Yes.
upset,
Yes.
and I would assume, well, let me strike this. Did you believe that she was upset? Because like I said, she was saying all the right things, but she wasn't acting like she was talking.
It's very complicated, and she was all over the place, to be frank, in that at one point she was confessing, at one point she was saying, I never did that. She was saying she couldn't remember some things I wanted to talk about, which was frustrating. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No worries. You said she was confessing. Was she admitting to potential talking to other men?
More than talking the night before when we were having the argument, but it was,
What was she saying?
you know, it was a heated discussion, so I don't remember every word of it. But at points, she kind of let it slip out that my concerns were well-founded.
Okay.
And then,
Okay, interesting. So not only was all the machinations of the hit on Dan causing issues for Wendy potentially, but she really was playing around.
5 minutes later, she would say the opposite. And when I've had to explain the story in the past, I've had to say it doesn't sound like it makes sense because she was just all over the place. She was hysterical. Really.
Ah, okay,
So would it be
Caroline.
fair to say at some point she admits to talking to other dudes, to talking to other men, and then shortly thereafter denies what she just confessed to?
Well, then that repeat as needed on the car ride back, she was like, I never did any of that stuff. I don't know what you're talking about, which was kind of crazy making for me because she had confessed to some of it the night before.
Okay. So from June 29th till July 13th, would you say you were fixing the relationship at that point? Was it getting better or was it getting worse?
It's hard to tell because on the 29th I left her house and I didn't see her again until July 13th. She went to South Florida for those 2 weeks.
Did you guys talk on the phone?
We talked on the phone once in a while. We did some video chats. I talked to the kids via video chat and things like that. But it was very up in the air where the relationship was going to go. I would get a mixture of messages verbally and by text.
Would you agree with me that your level of contact with her between June 29th and July 14th was less than it was before?
Oh, it was minimal. It was minimal. Days and days would go by at points without us talking on the phone at least. I may get the random text or something, but we weren't talking a lot.
And then on July 13th, Wendy, in essence, tells you that her brother, Charlie, had looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel
In 2013, yes, sir.
in 2013.
Yes.
What was your reaction to this?
It was in the context of a relationship discussion. It kind of just blurted out when he has a habit of blurting things out that are kind of tangential or whatever. And so I didn't know what to make of it. My stomach kind of flipped. It was like a chilling statement. And then we kind of ended up talking about the relationship again, and so I didn't give it a lot of thought at the time. It was just like a crazy thing that someone would say, you know.
Okay. Very crazy thing.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Did you take that statement as a threat to you? And let me kind of clarify this. She indicated that because of her bad relationship with Mr. Markel, correct? And you'll agree with me that they had a bad relationship, correct?
That's how she characterized it.
You'll agree with me that she said, based on a bad relationship, that her brother had looked into hiring somebody to kill him, correct?
Well, that was specifically about the relocation, is
Okay.
what she said in that statement. I know they had bad blood otherwise for other reasons, certainly, but that was specifically tied to the relocation battle being lost. That was what prompted Charlie to look into it, according to her statement.
This conversation that you had on July 13th, where was it?
It was in her house on Aqua Ridge.
Was anybody else around when she made this statement?
No, sir.
Did you contact any of your friends after this conversation and discuss the fact that Wendy Adelson had indicated that her brother had looked to hire a hitman?
In what time frame?
Okay, so on July 13th, when the conversation's over, do you stay there that night?
No,
You left.
we ended with me telling Wendy, if this isn't going to work for you, you can text me and we can just break up. I don't want a big thing, you know, like confrontation. And I left for the night. I did not stay.
Do you have like a family member or a best friend that you talk to about personal issues?
I have several, sure.
Okay. Did you call or contact any of them on the way back to discuss what had transpired about? And I'm not talking about the breakup.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm sorry. I am talking about the breakup.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you call your friends and go, hey, listen, you know, it ended with me and Wendy?
You know, it's summertime, and at FSU, a lot of these people were out of town. Some of them were even overseas, so there was less contact than there ordinarily would have been. But I'm sure I discussed the fact, well, not that night because it was so late. What I remember is the next day when I get this email saying, don't contact me for a week, I certainly shared that with friends because I found it really frustrating and surprising and thought it was weird.
Did you share with any of your friends the comment that Wendy Adelson made to you with regards to her brother and the murder for hire?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. I just couldn't tell you who or when I did that. But certainly, after the murder occurred, certainly I shared that with people. I also shared it with the police the first day they brought me in.
Right. So you were interviewed by law enforcement in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
During your interview with law enforcement, did you mention this statement?
I did.
Okay. Did you tell it was Detective Isom that interviewed
It
you?
was him and Investigator Hale.
Okay. Did you indicate to them who you had shared this information with?
I don't know that I was asked to.
Hearsay.
Judge, it's not for the...
Overruled.
Can you restate the question?
No worries.
Yeah.
So when you tell them what Wendy told you about her brother's murder for hire plot, did you say, yeah, listen, you know, I spoke to my buddy, because the murder happened on the 18th, correct?
That's correct.
And so 4 days prior to that is when you got that breakup. Was it an email or a text message?
It was an email.
Okay, so you get a breakup email, and so you call your friends, which is normal, right?
Sure.
And you indicated just a few minutes ago that you probably mentioned the murder for hire to some of your friends, right?
At some point, I just don't know when.
Okay. What about, was that before or after your interview with law enforcement?
Was what before or after?
Your discussions with friends.
Well, after I had told it to the police, I certainly discussed it. I'm confident. I may have done it before as well. I don't recall that. But after I told the police that, I did share that with some people confidentially. Yes.
Now, she told you, and by she I'm referring to Wendy Adelson, during your July 13th conversation, that he had looked and the price was either 15 or 50,000, correct?
That's correct.
So it's either one or the other, correct?
Right.
And would it be fair to say, based on your testimony, that she said that that price was too high?
No, she didn't offer any further context or explanation. It was kind of the thing that was blurted out, and then literally 20 seconds later, she started talking about something else, and I can't recall what that was. I think it was the relationship stuff that I was very focused on.
So out of nowhere, she tells you Charlie was going to go look to hire a hitman. It was going to cost $15,000 or $50,000, and you don't go back to that.
I don't know that it was out of nowhere. I believe preceding that was a discussion that if anything ever happened to Danny, she would move to Miami. I think I've spoken to the investigator. I asked him about that previously.
And listen, I have to ask Mr. Lacasse, at no point did you contact law enforcement after you heard of this threat so they could contact Mr. Markel to see if there's any need to protect him in any way, shape, or form?
I didn't.
Give me 1 second, Your Honor. Good night.
Wow. This guy has genuine guilt over realizing that he had a indication of what happened. But of course, how many people talk about, you know, I'd love to kill this person, I'd love to kill that person, and it may be in a certain context where it's more creepy than it would in other situations, because he does say that the way that Wendy referred to how Charlie said it, and the way that he himself heard Charlie bragging about stuff, was very creepy and weird. But you're never going to expect something to come of it, right? And he mentions this during the interview, that he feels terrible about the fact that, you know, he wishes he had said something, but it's so easy in retrospect. Yeah, you can see it on his face here.
Protect him in any way, shape, or form?
I didn't.
Give me 1 second, Your Honor. Good night. Just a few more questions, sir.
Sure.
Would I be correct or incorrect in assuming or in saying that you were interested in having a monogamous relationship with Wendy Adelson?
I thought I had a monogamous relationship with
And you wanted to keep it, correct?
Depends when you're asking.
On July 13th, 2014?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
I'm sorry to ask such personal questions. I know it's difficult. Did you think it's unusual? Well, let me ask this. At some point, did you ever see a picture of Dan Markel?
Sure.
Do you think that there's a resemblance between yourself and him?
Everybody always says that. When I was dating her, no one ever brought it up. I see it from the pictures. In real life, I was never told that while we were dating.
And as you indicated before, you're also a professor?
Yes, correct.
Do you feel wronged by Wendy Adelson?
Do I feel wronged?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
No further questions.
Dr. Banner?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Good morning.
The questions I'm about to ask you are about the investigation into you, not that we believe you're a suspect, okay?
I understand.
Yeah.
You would agree with me at the beginning of the case in July 2014, there was a thought that you were a potential suspect.
That's what I've been told, yes.
You were contacted by the police.
I was.
You came in, you were interviewed.
Yes, I came straight from my trip into the TPD station.
3 separate times you were interviewed, right?
Yes.
Now, they didn't handcuff you at gunpoint and drag you into the station, right?
No, they asked me to come in, so I came in.
Voluntarily went in.
Yes.
You told them what you knew. You explained the information, right?
Yes.
Eventually, you helped them get bank records to show where you were. It was in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I believe it was cell phone records and a receipt from a Kmart that had surveillance video of me, was my understanding of it.
So they get your bank records.
Yes.
They see a transaction at a Walmart, right?
Yeah, credit card records, yes, sir. Yes.
There's then a receipt. And then they go actually to the Walmart, get their surveillance footage that shows you there.
It was a Kmart, but yes, sir.
And then you were cleared.
That's correct.
You would agree with me that they objectively investigated you.
Yes.
Now, had they not gotten the bank records, the Walmart video, or anything like that, one could paint a picture that you were involved. Just the fact that you left town right when the murder happened and you had this connection.
Well, except that I wasn't in the state at the time of the murder, so how could I have done it? So that's,
What we're talking about here is that somebody could paint the picture
okay.
without all the evidence.
Yeah, if they don't have all the evidence, sure.
Let's go to something you said on direct talking about June 4th.
Yes.
And you appear to have a very good memory of all the instances. You said that Wendy had the kids on June 4th, the night of June 4th.
Yes.
You spent a lot of time with Wendy, spent a lot of time with the kids. You knew their daily schedule of the boys, right?
I knew not so much because I usually got there in the evening. So at the time, I would know what days she had the kids. But as far as pickup times and things like that, I usually saw them at the end of the day. I accompanied her just a couple times to pick up the kids. So I don't want to sound like I'm an expert in that because I'm not.
So June 4th, she has the kids. The next morning, June 5th, she would have taken them to Creative Preschool.
She would have, but I never stayed over there. So when the kids were there, so I wouldn't have known that because I left at the end of the night if the kids were there every time.
That would have been consistent with the custody setup that she had with Dan Markell, correct?
Yeah, depending on what the days on the schedule were, which I don't recall. I used to know that. I don't anymore.
It would have been that he'd come and pick them up at her house and then bring them over to Creative Preschool.
I never saw that sketch, that kind.
Yeah, it's quite one thing to realize that you've been messed around by someone you care about, but to realize that you have almost definitely been set up for a murder by someone you cared about, that's got to fuck you up a little bit, right?
Kind of scheduling anyway.
So it would have been consistent with on June 5th, she would have dropped the kids off.
It would have been consistent, but I don't have any primary knowledge of what she did on June 5th.
All right. Let's talk about Charles Adelson. Understanding that you didn't have a close relationship with him, you did meet him and you hung out with him.
Yeah, for a few hours.
To you, and I'm going to use your words, he seemed like somebody that hung out on both sides of the tracks, right?
That's the way he presented himself in that hot tub. Yes.
And you took that to be accurate.
Yes, I took his self-presentation to be accurate. That's correct.
During the day, he's wearing a lab coat or scrubs, whatever dentists wear, right?
Right.
And then when he's off work, he's going out, he's hanging out at the gym with less savory people.
Yeah, that was sort of his characterization. I was sort of repeating what he said. Yeah.
In your words, less savory
Well, not
individuals.
less savory, gritty. I don't remember his exact words, but gritty, something like that. I don't remember his exact words, but yeah, that's how he presented himself in that hot tub. It seemed to be almost a braggadocio kind of thing, like, look at me, I'm on both sides. Yeah.
And you took him to be a street smart guy.
I did.
He had friends that were ex-special ops.
Yes, that's what he said. Yeah, that's what him and Wendy said. Yeah.
His gym friends that to you almost came off as nefarious.
Well, yeah, and I don't remember the details at this point, but he was talking about deals they were doing. There was a lot of hinting and innuendo. But yeah, you're accurately presenting how he presented to me.
Let's go now to the dinner on March 11, 2014.
Sure.
It was outside, it was on Miami Beach.
Yeah.
If you remember, and you may not, do you remember seeing a pickup truck with two gentlemen outside of the restaurant watching you guys?
No.
Let's go now to July 14th, 2014.
Okay.
Now, you had met Catherine McBanwa several months prior to that.
Yeah, I met her in March.
So March, April, May, June, July. Wendy is opening up to you and saying what her brother had looked into doing, right?
I think you're talking about the 14th. You're talking about the 13th, I think.
July 13th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So July 13, 2014, she's talking about her brother hiring a hitman. She's giving you incriminating details, right?
Yes.
Never said anything about the involvement of Catherine McBanwa, right?
No, it was 3 sentences, so no, she didn't.
All right, let's talk about now the options that he looked into doing to take care of the problem, right?
Right.
On direct examination, the state attorney's office asked you what year it was. But there was more specifics to that. It was specifically the summer of 2013, right?
Yes, it was attached to the relocation, so whenever, it was after relocation had failed, where she'd been denied the motion for relocation.
But I want to make sure it's clear because we didn't have the full information from
Yeah.
direct examination. What Wendy told you is that her brother looked into hiring a hitman in the summer of 2013.
That's correct.
And that would have been before he even knew Catherine McBanwa.
Yeah, I don't know when they met, but if you say so.
One brief
That's not true. That's what the attorney tried to argue there is not true. He did know Katie in 2013.
moment, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Redirect.
Mr. Lacasse.
Yes, Your Honor. The breakup email on July 14th, 2014, I know you had some phone contact after that, but was that basically the end of your relationship?
That's the last time I ever saw her.
Okay.
We did have some, it was in August. It was after, we didn't talk between then and after the murder.
Okay,
We're
and you
talking-
never got back together and resumed your
Oh,
relationship?
no.
No further questions?
All right, did you ever have a question of this witness? Write your question down, we'll go sidebar. So, series of questions from the jury. The email, the July 14, 2014 email, was that on a FSU website or a private website? Do you have any recollection?
I think that was from Wendy's Gmail account.
Okay, what about to you?
Oh, that would have been to my Gmail as well.
Okay. So the answer is no, it was not on an FSU website?
Correct.
Okay.
To the best of my recollection, Your Honor.
Okay. Did Ms. Adelson indicate that she wanted to relocate to have the children full-time?
She talked about, she didn't talk directly about relocating because she knew that was no longer a possibility. But the other side of that coin, how unhappy she was in Tallahassee and how frustrated she was by the child custody, were issues that came up, if not every day, every week, that came up very frequently.
Okay, so that was actually the next question about, she frequently spoke about the divorce and the custody battle.
Yes, consistently throughout the entire relationship.
And did she appear
Me too, I
distressed
thought.
that she didn't have the children with her?
Sometimes,
Very often the jury questions are more interesting than the actual direct questions.
yes.
More
What kind of
revealing.
vehicle were you driving back in July 2014?
I was driving a 2004 four-door silver Nissan Sentra.
Ms. Kaplan?
No further questions?
Garcia? McBanwa?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank
All
you.
right, you can step down.
Alright guys, so that's the testimony from both Wendy and Jeff during the first trial of Katie and Garcia. I think you can come to your own conclusions about the contrast in terms of their demeanor, their believability, right? And the contrast in the actual information, what Jeff was able to contradict in Wendy's account of a few things. I'm going to be going through the next two trials to show the same thing, the contrast in their testimonies and how things such as Wendy's testimony evolves. You will not hear Jeff's testimony evolve because he's telling the truth. Simple as that. And Wendy is attempting to manipulate and divert and minimize. So I hope you guys found that interesting, valuable if you're interested in this case. And that's all I have for tonight, guys. So thanks everyone for being here, and I shall see you next time when we go through some more Adelson craziness. And have a good night, and I shall see you next time. Good night.